Chapter 1007. C_T, Genius 1 second remember love/go/small? Show.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Cotton candy novel website MyAnhuating. CC updates quickly. The website is clean and has few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. Actually, Night Sorrow was mainly going for the true meaning of nothingness. After all, the true meaning of time was at the desolate river in the sky dome world. Don't worry. You have all 4 attributes of willpower. You won't have a problem. Xianyu patted Night Sorrow's shoulder and said. Initial release of square root P version. Night Sorrow smiled and nodded. He knew his own situation, but some things could not be said. Wu Lingfei also shook her head at Night Sorrow. Some secrets were better kept. Otherwise, it would be fatal. The Nine Heavens world was the largest world near the Sky Mysterious world. There were hundreds of worlds around it. The Sky Mysterious world was 1,000 times bigger than the Nine Regions world, but it was still much smaller in front of the Nine Heavens world. Under Qian Ziwei's lead, the group arrived at the Nine Heavens world's Nine Heavens city. It was the first city of the Nine Heavens world. It should be called the first city of the 100 worlds. The ceremony of the first saint of the 100 worlds was held at the Nine Heavens mountain in the Nine Heavens city. After Qian Ziwei brought the group to the Nine Heavens mountain, someone came to receive them. After checking their tokens, they were arranged to stay in a guest house. Princess Ziwei, this is the resting area of the Sky Mysterious world. This city is really grand. The Nine Heavens mountain is really majestic. Night Sorrow said emotionally. If you have feelings, can you not say it? I know you're a country bumpkin. Xianyu looked at Night Sorrow with disdain. So what if I'm a country bumpkin? Who can bite me? Night Sorrow looked at Xianyu and said. You're proud of being a country bumpkin. I don't know you. Xianyu turned to look at the other side. I'm willing to know you. Night Sorrow glared at Xianyu. You two are the same. Qian Ziwei shook her head helplessly. She could not convince Qianyu. She also could not persuade Night Sorrow. After that, the group settled down. Night Sorrow didn't dare to cultivate right now. If he made a breakthrough, then it would be a waste of time. Although there was a desolate river where he could comprehend the will of time, it was still good to have another place to comprehend it. After all, different places where the will of heaven and earth manifested would display different things. Night Sorrow also knew that the will of time and will of space could be superimposed. There was a saying about the will of time and space, but it needed to be fused. The prerequisite was a kind of pellet. The pellet's level was not high, but it was hard to find the ingredients. It was called the dual polarity pellet, but Night Sorrow already had the ingredients. Half a month after Night Sorrow stayed in the Sky Profound world, some people came to the Sky Profound world. It was Chen Bai, Heifeng, and Qing Yin. After receiving the news, Night Sorrow went to welcome them. Hee, we went to the Tianding Gate and found out that you were in the Nine Heavens realm, so we came to take a look. We didn't expect you to really be here. Chen Bai cupped his hands at Night Sorrow. We left a few days earlier, so we might have missed you. Night Sorrow brought them to his room and took out a tea table to make tea. This is my third senior sister, Qing Yin. Heifeng introduced Qing Yin to Night Sorrow. Greetings, Holy King Qing Yin. Night Sorrow cupped his hands at Qing Yin. Those who hadn't entered the king's realm were considered holy kings, so Night Sorrow addressed her as such. Qing Yin thanks Holy King Night Sorrow for extending my life. Qing Yin cupped her hands at Night Sorrow. You're welcome. Just call me Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow smiled. What are you two doing here? Xianyu, who came out of his room, saw Chen Bai and Heifeng, and said rudely. What does our visit have to do with you? Heifeng replied when he heard Xianyu's rudeness. What level are you at? Won't people laugh at you if you say that? Sit down and have some tea. Night Sorrow was speechless. Xianyu and Heifeng were vulgar. They were no different from ruffians in the marketplace. Yes, a battle is a battle. We don't have any grudges, so there's no need to take it to heart. Qing Yin said. That's right. I'm Qian Ziwei from the Xiantian dynasty. Greetings, King of No Beginning. Qian Ziwei cupped her hands at Qing Yin and the others. Princess Ziwei. I've heard of Princess Ziwei before. This must be Princess Rose. Qing Yin stood up and cupped her hands at Qian Ziwei and Qian Ziwei. Then everyone chatted casually. Qian Ziwei, Qing Yin, and Shen Bai chatted very well. Qian Yu and Heifeng looked at each other like two roosters. What's going on with you two? Knight Sorrow was speechless. He had to say something now. After all, he was the middleman between the two groups. Nothing. It's just that this guy is too arrogant. Heifeng said. How am I arrogant? Qian Yu snorted. Alright, it's fate to sit together and drink tea. Everyone, give me some face. Let's not quarrel. Knight Sorrow said with a smile. After hearing Knight Sorrow's words, the two calmed down. Knight Sorrow also understood that Qian Yu and Heifeng, who came from monarch-level forces, were arrogant people. After a while, Qing Yin expressed her gratitude again and left with her two junior brothers. After that, Yi Shang returned to his room as well. A moment later, his three wives came to his room. Half-step King doesn't have any manners. Yang Lei said. Yang Lei and the others knew that Qing Yin and the others came. They just didn't come out. There was nothing to say even if they did. Half-step King is also human. It's normal to have emotions and desires. Knight Sorrow said with a smile. 13, you're calm enough. They're a little lacking in manners. Aoi said. Perhaps. It's also because of their personalities. Knight Sorrow said with a smile. The state of mind is the state of mind. They were born in a large world, but they definitely haven't seen as much as Knight Sorrow as the Realm Lord. Their state of mind is a little lacking. Wu Lingfei came to Knight Sorrow's room. Haha. Aunt Fei is here. Aunt Fei is improving very quickly. Knight Sorrow said with a smile. Among the people around Knight Sorrow, Wu Lingfei's cultivation speed was the fastest. She was now a peak 4-star Holy King and was on her way to becoming a 5-star Holy King. It's all because of your time-space pagoda. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so fast. Wu Lingfei nodded at Yi Shang. When Yi Shang's avatar was outside, the space-time pagoda was placed in the bamboo grove. Everyone around him could go in and cultivate. This way, it wouldn't affect their cultivation. We have to work hard. You're already rushing towards the king's realm. We can't just stay here. Xueshi also entered Knight Sorrow's room. You're all doing well. I'm just lucky. You can participate in the next first sage ceremony of the 100 Realms. Knight Sorrow said. He knew that the cultivators of the 9 domains world were too inexperienced and needed time, including himself. Maybe by the next first sage ceremony of the 100 Realms, we'll have already entered the king's realm. Wu Lingfei said. She was very confident in herself. Haha. I was wrong. It's my fault. We'll all be kings in the future. There's no problem. Knight Sorrow smiled embarrassedly. He knew that compared to other cultivators, the people around him didn't lack talent. What they lacked was time and foundation. Chapter 1008. C_T, Genius 1 second remember love/go/small? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. Quick update. The website is clean and has few advertisements. I love this kind of website. You must leave a good review. In fact, there were many half-step king realm cultivators who couldn't enter the king's realm. Many people were just a little bit away, but they couldn't enter the king's realm and died due to the limitations of their lifespan. The king's realm was a giant that didn't have lifespan limitations. It wasn't easy to enter. For example, the Tianding Gate had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, and only old Xiang was a king. Those who could enter the king's realm were all geniuses. The group chatted casually, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. This was what Night Sorrow liked the most. He was happy to see people around him being harmonious and not fighting. Night Sorrow didn't cultivate will comprehension. He couldn't improve his foundation. He just practiced his spear arts every day, looking for the feeling of the will of space, and fusing it into his spear arts. Night Sorrow had already comprehended 90% of the will of space. The most obvious aspect was speed. Movement speed and attack speed were two types of speed that greatly increased combat power. Xian Ziwei and her brother often came to Night Sorrow to drink tea and chat. Xian Ziwei was especially interested in Night Sorrow. She liked refining. During one of their conversations, she learned that Night Sorrow was also proficient in refining, so she often asked for advice. Night Sorrow couldn't talk about the inheritance, but he could still talk about his personal understanding of refining with Qian Ziwei. Author, Qing Yin, Chen Bai, and Heifeng also often came to drink tea and chat with Night Sorrow. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. The first sage of the 100 World ceremony was getting closer and closer. Night Sorrow was also a bit annoyed. The reason for Night Sorrow's irritation wasn't the pressure of the first sage of the 100 Realms Grand Ceremony, but the first sage of the 100 Realms Grand Ceremony was delaying his time. If it weren't for the first sage of the 100 Realms Grand Ceremony, he would have cultivated in seclusion and would have been able to comprehend the last bit of the will of space. But now, he could only wait. No one could understand why Night Sorrow was so anxious. The ceremony of the first saint of the 100 Realms was just around the corner. Everyone should be excited. Sister-in-law Sikong, what's the situation with Night Sorrow? Qian Yu, who had been scolded by Night Sorrow, asked Sikong Chuyu and the others. Qian Yu quarreled with Night Sorrow, but he was very respectful to the people around Night Sorrow. I don't know. Maybe something affected his mood. It shouldn't have anything to do with the first sage of the 100 Realms ceremony. Sikong Chuyu said. We can't provoke this guy now. I didn't say anything just now. He just yelled at me. Qian Yu rubbed his nose. I'm sorry. We don't know about Night Sorrow's situation either. His mood has always been very stable. Who knows what happened to him in the past few days? Aoi cupped her hands and apologized to Qian Yu, Qian Ziwei, and the others. Haha. It's nothing. Everyone has a bad mood sometimes. Night Sorrow is also a sentimental person, Qian Ziwei said with a smile. At this time, Wu Lingfei had brewed a pot of tea and was talking to Night Sorrow, asking about Night Sorrow's situation. Night Sorrow didn't hide anything from Wu Lingfei and told her about his situation. There's no rush. You can first comprehend the will of space as a foundation. When things are settled here, you can go back and break through, Wu Lingfei said with a smile. After knowing about Night Sorrow's situation, she was really happy because this meant that the 9 regions world would soon have a king. This meant that a new era was coming. Auntie Fei, you don't know. I can take that step very soon, but I have to wait. This feeling is very unpleasant, Night Sorrow said. Don't worry. Good things are never too late. Don't worry. Look at how happy I was when I found out, Wu Lingfei said with a smile. Good things are never too late. I'll wait. Auntie Fei, you don't know. I've always wanted to turn around and go back to cultivate in peace. Now that I've heard Auntie Fei's words, I feel a little better, Night Sorrow said. Drink a cup of tea to calm your heart. Just treat it as accompanying Auntie Fei and chew you out to relax. Besides, you have a place to comprehend the will of space, and there's no place for the other wills to manifest. You can't give up on comprehending the other wills, so this is a great opportunity, Wu Lingfei said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow nodded. Yes, there are gains and losses. However, in comparison, the losses are smaller. In other words, I'll enter the king's realm later. Seeing that Night Sorrow's mentality and emotions had changed, Wu Lingfei felt a little relieved. Night Sorrow, who came out of Wu Lingfei's room, once again became the calm Night Sorrow who faced everything. After stabilizing his emotions, Night Sorrow held the reincarnation spear and brandished it one by one, searching for the feeling of the spear. "You're in a good mood," Qianyu said as he walked over. "I was a little uneasy a few days ago. If I've offended you, please forgive me." Night Sorrow nodded at Qianyu. He recalled that his attitude towards Qianyu was indeed bad a few days ago. "It's nothing. Everyone will scold you when they're in a bad mood, as long as you're happy," Qianyu said with a smile. "You're so manly." Night Sorrow gave Qianyu a thumbs up. "I can't help it. Am I supposed to scold you back?" "I'm not that kind of person," Qianyu said with a smile. Night Sorrow took out 2 jars of wine and threw one to Qianyu. "This is good wine. I usually don't bear to take it out. I'll have to try it." Qianyu opened a wine jar and drank a mouthful. Night Sorrow also opened a wine jar and drank a mouthful with Qianyu. "It's strong enough and has a long aftertaste. It's a rare good wine," Qianyu said. "There's good wine. Can't just the two of you drink it? Take out some more." Qian Ziwei and Qian Xiangwei walked over. "No problem. As long as Princess Ziwei doesn't mind." Night Sorrow took out another jar of wine. New chapter, section P above ZB, "I'll call the servants to send some dishes over." Qian Xiangwei smiled and went to call the servants. Night Sorrow also called Wu Lingfei, Xueshi, Zhu Jiuyun, and his 3 wives. As for his parents, they were still cultivating in the space-time pagoda. As they drank, everyone became more talkative. "I've never drunk with strangers. Today, we're drinking together. From now on, Night Sorrow is my brother. If there's anything, just call me. I'll definitely be there." Qianyu looked at Night Sorrow and said. "You're a sentimental person. I'll acknowledge you as my brother, but not for now." Night Sorrow shook his head and said. "What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? I, Qianyu, am a man without relying on my family background." Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Qianyu panicked. "It's not that I'm looking down on you. When I'm done with Tian dynasty, we'll be brothers." Night Sorrow raised his head and drank 2 mouthfuls of wine. "What's wrong with that? You're overthinking it." Qianyu smiled. He did not care about Night Sorrow's reason. Chapter 1009. The enmity between me and the South Sky dynasty is as deep as the ocean. As long as I'm alive, I must eradicate the South Sky dynasty, so you can't be my brother right now." Night Sorrow shook his head. "Your brother is Qianyu, not the prince of the Black Sky dynasty. The one who fights with you is also Qianyu. The one who drinks with you is also Qianyu," said Qianyu. "All right." Night Sorrow thought for a moment and nodded. "You're still so shy. Geez, bring more wine." Qianyu looked at Night Sorrow and patted the wine jug. Night Sorrow smiled and took out a few more jugs of wine. He placed them on the table. "Princess Ziwei, Princess Rose, let's drink to our heart's content today. You're my brother's brother. If you don't mind, you can call me Sister Ziwei," said Qian Ziwei. "Sister Ziwei, Sister Rose." Night Sorrow cupped his hands at the 2 sisters. "All right, but we need a greeting gift. I've never experienced this before, so I don't know what to give you," said Qian Ziwei excitedly. "There's really no need for that. I'm not calling you sister as a greeting gift," said Night Sorrow. Everyone had a good time drinking this meal, and it lasted for 4 hours before it ended. After resting for a night, Night Sorrow also had to prepare for the first Sage of the 100 Realms ceremony because it would officially begin in 2 days. Quite a few people from the profound heaven world had come, but before Night Sorrow and Qian Ziwei arrived, they were arranged to stay in the courtyard next to theirs. The other guest pavilions were also full. As for the rules of the first Sage of the 100 Realms ceremony, Night Sorrow had learned a bit. Qian Ziwei had told Night Sorrow that the process was a selection, and the finals. There were simply too many people participating, so they had to go through layers and layers of selections until the final 100 people were ranked. What made Night Sorrow a bit hesitant was that the middle stage was similar to the Heaven's Sealing Palace. Those who passed would receive a title. However, Night Sorrow already had a title from the 9 Domains world, so what would happen if he also received a title? Since he had already reached this level, Night Sorrow would not back down. He had to enter the heavenly Tao will cave Night Sorrow. If there was no nihility will, he would start with the will of time. R is the only positive R version, the other JR is the pirate version. Brother, you're not agitated. I'm a little. Qian Yu carried the wine jar to Night Sorrow's room. It's alright. Didn't they say that the top 10 would have a chance? Let's work harder. If we really can't do it, then we're not as good as others. There's nothing to say, said Night Sorrow with a smile. You're right. Let's work harder. If we can't do it, then we have nothing to say. It's our honor to be able to participate in the first Sage of the 100 Realms ceremony after coming to the 9 Firmament world. I wonder how many of the previous titled Sage Kings will participate, said Qian Yu as he opened the wine jar. What do you mean by that? Asked Night Sorrow, puzzled. Are you stupid? The first Sage of the 100 Realms ceremony is held once every 3,000 years. The Sage Kings who obtained a ranking last time did not die, nor did they enter the King's realm. Whether they come or not, they're the most shameless. They're all old fellows who have cultivated for thousands of years, said Qian Yu. In fact, it wasn't just Qian Yu who thought this. Many people were not afraid of their peers. Even the Half-Step King was about the same. However, the Half-Step King who had participated in the first Sage of the 100 Realms ceremony 3,000 years ago was terrifying. After 3,000 years of accumulation, his battle experience and battle strength were not something that newcomers could compare to. Actually, I just found out about this. If you think about it directly, these people have cultivated for a long time, so their strength might be very terrifying. However, if you think about it from another angle, it's not the case, said Night Sorrow as he poured a bowl of wine for Qian Yu. I don't understand. How did it become not the case when it came to you? Asked Qian Yu after drinking a bowl of wine. Experts are experts no matter the time. If they're weak, it's useless no matter how much time you give them. They haven't broken through in 3,000 years and still want to fight for a second opportunity. What's there to be afraid of? They're just a bit more experienced, said Night Sorrow with a smile. That's true. What's there to be afraid of if they haven't broken through in 3,000 years? Qian Yu laughed heartily when he heard Night Sorrow's words. Night Sorrow's words made him feel less apprehensive. Qian Yu's laughter attracted Qian Ziwei, Qian Xiangwei, and Night Sorrow's 3 wives to enter Night Sorrow's room. Fortunately, the room was big enough for everyone to sit down and chat. What's wrong with you? Asked Qian Ziwei. Sister, you keep telling me to be careful of the titled Sage Kings who participated in the last titled Sage King, but Night Sorrow doesn't think so. He thinks they're just ordinary. Idiots who haven't broken through in 3,000 years have nothing to be afraid of. They're just a bit more experienced. If we meet them, we'll fight. If we can't beat them, just say we can't beat them, said Qian Yu with a smile. Little brother Night Sorrow, you're right. There's no need to be afraid. Otherwise, we'll be at a disadvantage, said Qian Ziwei with a smile. Sister Ziwei, we're the best. We don't need to be afraid of anyone. Night Sorrow nodded at Qian Ziwei and Qian Xiangwei. They both wanted to participate. Little brother Night Sorrow, you're right. After the first Sage ceremony of the 100 Worlds, bring your family to the Shantian dynasty. I'll cook a feast for you, said Qian Xiangwei with a smile. Then Qian Ziwei told Yi Shang to be careful of the Yuan spirit world, which was the archenemy of the profound sky world. The 2 worlds hated each other, and if the 2 worlds met, the other side would definitely target them. While they were chatting, a middle-aged couple arrived at the guest pavilion. The middle-aged man stood there like a sword piercing the sky. The woman in her 30s was also graceful and elegant. The moment the two came in, Qian Ziwei brought her sister and brother out of Night Sorrow's room. She bowed to the couple and called them father and mother. Night Sorrow greets the Xiantian dynasty lord. Night Sorrow and his 3 wives also cupped their hands to greet the middle-aged couple. He knew that this middle-aged man was the current ruler of the Xiantian dynasty. Young and handsome. Ziwei, why don't you introduce them to father, said the middle-aged man with a smile. Father, he's Night Sorrow. He's Yu's brother. I also recognize him as my brother. These are his wives, Night Sorrow. Sister-in-law, this is my father and mother, said Qian Ziwei. This is a good thing. Night Sorrow, why does this name sound so familiar, said the middle-aged man as he rubbed his brows. The middle-aged man was an overlord in the profound heaven world. His name was Qian Zhenyu. People called him King Zhenyu. His wife was also very famous. Her name was Yunyu, Liu King Yunyu. He has some enmity with the Tiannan dynasty. He massacred 4 of their cities, so he's wanted, said Qian Ziwei. I remember now. It's not a big deal. It's good that young people can cause trouble. I'm just afraid that they can't. If they can, it's a skill, said Qian Zhenyu with a smile. Your Majesty, this way please, said Yishang. Zhenyu, this child is so young, said Yunyu as she sized up Night Sorrow. Speak. Chapter 10:10. Qian Zhenyu walked to the tea table in the courtyard and sat down. He looked at Night Sorrow and said, a half-step king who is more than 100 years old. If I'm not mistaken, you can enter the king's realm at any time, right? Imperial Lord, you can even tell? Night Sorrow asked in surprise. Yes. Because I'm good at perception, I can see through other people's situations. I've never heard of a high-level king with the will of space. Of course, it could be that I'm ignorant, but you're good. There's no doubt about that, Qian Zhenyu said. After staying here for a while and chatting with Night Sorrow and the others, Qian Zhenyu and his wife left. Zhenyu, that young man really has a chance to enter the king's realm, Yunyu asked after leaving the guest house. Yes, he can enter the king's realm at any time. He's also a king with the will of space. The most terrifying thing is that he's the lord of the world. Although he deliberately suppressed it, he has the power of the world origin protecting him. He can't hide it from me, Qian Zhenyu said. Yunyu looked at her husband in shock. She didn't doubt her husband's eyesight because Qian Zhenyu had a secret technique called the Eye of Tao that could see through some illusions and point to the essence. The Tiannan dynasty has kicked an iron plate this time. The Tianxian world will be in big trouble in the future. When he enters the king's realm, the ordinary first or second level kings will be bullied. He can control the will of space and must be good at speed. Yunyu, you know what this means, Qian Zhenyu said with a smile. Qian Zhenyu was also disgusted with the current Tiannan dynasty because they were unscrupulous. It was a completely different concept from when Shang-Xi was the imperial lord. If he becomes the king of space, his speed will be terrifying. He can run away after killing. Shang Tianfeng can't do anything. If his daughter and son are with him, there may be more trouble, but it may be a good thing. After all, such a person has great luck, Yunyu said. Don't interfere with the children's affairs. They also need friends, Qian Zhenyu said. According to what you said, he is about to enter the king realm. His will is at least 90%. Normal half-step kings are not his match. He has hope of becoming the first sage of the 100 realms. Yunyu thought of another problem. Let's wait and see. The appearance of a century-old half-step king is bound to shock some people, including the sovereigns. The great ancestor will be very happy, Qian Zhenyu said with a smile. Zhenyu, you should greet the great ancestor. If such a talent is easily snatched away by other sovereigns, it will be a loss for the profound heaven world, Yunyu reminded Qian Zhenyu. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the grand ceremony of the first saint of the 100 realms to begin. Night Sorrow brought his parents out of the time and space treasure pagoda. He brought his people and followed Xian Ziwei to Nine Cloud Plaza. Imposing manner. Knight Sorrow felt that everything in the Nine Heavens world was imposing. He had never seen such a large plaza with a diameter of hundreds of miles. On one side of the plaza was a towering tower. It was the Nine Heavens Pagoda. There were more than a dozen people sitting in the main seats in front of the Nine Heavens Pagoda. Knight Sorrow knew that they were all sovereigns, the leaders of their respective worlds. Someone brought Xian Ziwei and Knight Sorrow to the area of the profound heaven world. Xian Zhenyu and Yunyu sat in the front. There were also some other people, including the people of the Tiannan dynasty. Knight Sorrow saw his enemy, Shang Jingchun. He was behind the people of the Tiannan dynasty. He was also a member of the ceremony. After all, he was also a peak venerable. Take a seat. There are some things that can be solved in the profound heaven world. Xian Zhenyu nodded to Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow brought his people to the seats behind Xian Zhenyu and Yunyu. Don't worry about it. We can talk about it when we get back. Xian Ziwei pulled Knight Sorrow and led him to their seats. Yi Wuyo, Yu Qing, and the others sat behind Knight Sorrow. I don't care. I'm not here to seek revenge. I'm here to participate in the first saint ceremony of the 100 Worlds. Knight Sorrow smiled and looked around. He found that there were many factions and many people participating. Knight Sorrow didn't know who was participating, but he felt that there were at least a few thousand people because there were many peak saint kings and half-step king saints in each faction. Knight Sorrow also saw Luo Qisha and the others. Chen Bai, Qing Yin, and He Feng were all there. Seeing Knight Sorrow, Luo Qisha and the others smiled and nodded. Knight Sorrow also cupped his hands in return. At this time, a middle-aged man in a brocade robe sitting in the middle of the main seat stood up. Very good. Many talents have come to the first saint ceremony of the 100 Worlds this time. The first saint ceremony of the 100 Worlds is a chance for you to stand out and fight for your own opportunities. The brocade-robed elder then explained the ceremony's rewards and rules. In the 100 Worlds Saint King ceremony, the top 100 would be rewarded. The top 10 would be rewarded with Saint King weapons, Saint King pills, and the chance to cultivate in the will of heaven and earth's cave. Different rankings would give different amounts of time to cultivate in the will of heaven and earth's cave. The first place would have 100 years, the second place would have 90 years, and so on. The 10th place would have 10 years. Y updated the fastest. Go. Those who were not in the top 10 would not have the chance to cultivate in the will of heaven and earth's cave. They would only be rewarded with resources. There were not many restrictions in the rules. They were not allowed to use poison or soul doppelgangers. However, they could use their own poison techniques. After entering the great competition, life and death would be determined. The first round would be the preliminaries. All the participants would be eliminated. No matter how many people there were, only 1,000 people would be left in the first round. 1,000 peak saint kings and half-step king realm cultivators. This was a huge number. There had not been a saint king in the 9 regions world for 10,000 years. However, this was a big world, a mature world. The mysterious sky world was 1,000 times the size of the 9 regions world. The sky dome world was much bigger than the mysterious sky world. There were many worlds like the mysterious sky world and the sky dome world around the 9 heavens world. Therefore, the number of peak saint kings and half-step king realm cultivators who came to participate in the first saint ceremony of the 100 Worlds far exceeded the number of 1,000. The rules of the preliminaries were simple and violent. Everyone would go to the big arena in the middle of the square. If they were killed, they would be disqualified. In the end, only 1,000 people would be left in the arena. The preliminaries would be over. Small teams are at a disadvantage. Our mysterious sky world is not as good as some other worlds. Look at the 9 heavens worlds camp. How many peak saints and half-step king realm cultivators are there? Qian Xiangwei muttered. There is no absolute fairness in the world. This round is not a test of fighting ability. It is a test of survival ability. It is enough as long as you can survive, Night Sorrow said. Brother Night Sorrow, we have a defensive matrix. Will you be okay? Qian Xiangwei asked Night Sorrow. If I can't survive the preliminaries, then what's the point of talking about the following battles? Have some confidence in me, Night Sorrow said with a smile. That's true. Don't be too far away from us. This is a battle of life and death, Qian Xiangwei reminded Night Sorrow. Speak. Second watch. Chapter 10-11. After speaking, Night Sorrow took out a storage ring and put it on. He took off his original storage ring, and his clone entered the space-time pagoda with the storage ring. His clone entered the space-time pagoda, but he left the dragon cauldron behind. Since he was here, Night Sorrow would fight with all his might. Night Sorrow, this is not the time to fight. Preserving your strength is the right thing to do, Wu Lingfei said. Not necessarily. There are no soft persimmons here. Whoever attacks me, I will kill them. Let me see how many people are not afraid of death, Night Sorrow said as he let out a sigh. Deterrence is also a method, Yi Wuyo nodded. After that, the participants hung their number plates on their waists and started walking towards the arena. Night Sorrow's number plate was 13. When Qian Ziwei came back from the registration and gave Night Sorrow his number plate, Night Sorrow smiled because it was the same as his ranking in the Medicine Valley. Night Sorrow, Qian Ziwei, and the other people from the Tianxian world walked together to one side of the arena. This is the time to show the strength of a team. No matter how big the conflict is in the Tianxian world, we have to be united against the outside world, Qian Ziwei said. Some people nodded, while others did not say anything. However, no one objected. Since Princess Ziwei has spoken, I think no one will object. I, Shang Jingxian, have no objections, the middle-aged man standing beside Shang Jingxian said. He was the crown prince of the Tiannan dynasty and had a cultivation level that was half a king. His status in the Tiannan dynasty was not something Shang Jingxian could compare to. That's good. Qian Ziwei nodded. You are Night Sorrow. I hope you can be lucky and survive the selection. If we meet at any other time, Shang Jingxian will definitely kill you. Shang Jingxian had already recognized Night Sorrow. After all, he was a wanted criminal in the Tiannan dynasty. He had some influence. Shameless boasting, Yi Shan replied with 4 words. You really know how to brag, Qian Yu said after glancing at Shang Jingxian. Qian Yu understood Night Sorrow's strength. He, a half-step king, had been abused before. Chen Bai had also been abused before. In addition, Qian Ziwei and Qian Xiangwei had also expressed that they were not Night Sorrow's match. Therefore, when he heard Shang Jingxuan's words, he was very unhappy. Glancing at Qian Yu, Shang Jingxian did not say anything. He could yell at Night Sorrow, but not Qian Yu. To put it bluntly, in the profound heaven world, the Sky South Empire did not dare to provoke the Xintian Empire. They were not on the same level. The Xintian Empire had a sovereign, but the Sky South Empire did not. Night Sorrow smiled, looking down on people like Shang Jingxian who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Qian Yu scolded him and didn't even dare to fart. Following which, a host walked to the high platform at the side of the arena. He held 2 flags in his hands. The green flag was for battle, and the red flag was for stop. Night Sorrow held the reincarnation spear in his hand because the next battle would be a desperate one. It was a high-level life and death battle. There were no weaklings here. If one's strength was not enough, then they would be killed. Following the wave of the man's flag on the high platform, the battle on the arena began. Teams began to fight against each other. At this time, no one would be lenient. Teams began to kill each other. Of course, there were also individuals who flew alone. Those were rogue cultivators who had no faction and were strong. Just as Night Sorrow was observing the battlefield, a team charged towards the profound heaven world's camp. It's the bastards from the Yuan spirit world, Qian Ziwei reminded Night Sorrow. You guys be careful too. Knight Sorrow waved his reincarnation spear and charged towards the people from the Yuan spirit world. At this time, he had to kill. If he did not kill others, others would kill him. In order to avoid exhaustion, Knight Sorrow directly used the will of space to increase his speed and poured the power of desolates into the reincarnation spear. He directly used his strongest state to fight. The spatial attribute protective barrier was strengthened by 90% of the will of space. Knight Sorrow's speed was extremely fast. He charged into the Yuan spirit world's camp and started to kill. At this time, Wu Lingfei and the others were filled with worry. The Yuan spirit world was a team with dozens of people. Knight Sorrow charged in alone. This kid has guts, but a brainless person is destined to not live long. An old man with a cold expression sitting on the main seat said. He was the leader of the Yuan spirit world, the Yuan spirit sovereign. That might not be the case. Maybe he is a tiger in a flock of sheep, another old man wearing a brocade robe said. He was the great ancestor of Qianyu, the profound heaven sovereign of the profound heaven world. In the cultivation world, cultivators had a long lifespan. A high-level cultivator might have many generations of descendants living at the same time. Therefore, addressing them was a problem. Under normal circumstances, those with a difference of more than 4 generations would be addressed as great ancestor. You two are still the same. But Yuan spirit, it is not appropriate for you to curse a young man. The old man sitting in the middle said. His gaze was also on Knight Sorrow. He was the host this time, the sovereign of the 9th heaven sect of the 9 heavens realm. Sovereign Yuan spirit did not speak. He and the sovereign of the profound heaven sovereign were opponents. He could speak against each other, but he could not offend either of them. Knight Sorrow displayed his speed to the extreme. When he moved, the opponent's attacks all missed. His sky wasteland killing spear was strengthened by the will of space and the attack seemed to be shortened. The moment the spear was shot, no Saint King could block it. After killing the opponent, Little Kong would use his energy to collect the spoils. The Saint Kings were slaughtered. The half-step king could not withstand it. He could dodge 2 spears, but he could not defend against the third. Knight Sorrow's speed was strengthened by the will of space, and the rule of time was accelerated by the time. They both assisted the attack speed. The half-step king was also killed. When Knight Sorrow killed the 6th person, the people of the Yuan spirit world knew that they had encountered a tough opponent. They knew that they had encountered a tough opponent, so they began to besiege Knight Sorrow. Besieging is effective. Then there is not much meaning for the masters to be respected. No one needs to cultivate. Just call on your friends. Seeing Knight Sorrow killing everywhere, the sovereign of the profound heaven sovereign was very happy. He directly threw a knife to the sovereign of the profound heaven sovereign. The sovereign of the profound heaven sovereign had been watching Knight Sorrow's battle. At this time, Knight Sorrow's performance was too dazzling. He was too strong, so he did not defend. When the speed reached a certain level, there was no need to defend. In fact, as the sovereign of the profound heaven sovereign said, besieging was ineffective against Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow's protective shield was constantly being cut. He had been fighting outside the encirclement. It could also be said that there was no encirclement. Besieging was ineffective against Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow killed another 2 opponents. The people of the Yuan spirit world retreated. Because the profound heaven world camp was not easy to kill, they could only change their position. No one was brainless. If they fought recklessly and lost their strength, they would not be able to withstand the attacks of the other teams. 4 up, the Yuan spirit world retreated. Knight Sorrow returned to the profound heaven world camp. This is domineering. Unlike some people who only know how to talk and hide at the crucial moment. Qian Yu laughed. Said. Chapter 10-12. Shang Jingxian looked at Qian Yu angrily, but he didn't say anything. If he said anything, it wouldn't end well for him. Qian Ziwei and her brother were definitely more powerful than him. If they fought, he would be at a disadvantage. The other reason Shang Jingxian didn't attack was that Night Sorrow was standing next to Qian Ziwei and her brother. If he had a conflict with Qian Ziwei and the others, Night Sorrow would definitely attack. At that moment, Night Sorrow was watching Shang Jingxuan's reaction. If Shang Jingxian exploded, he would immediately attack. What a young half-step king. His battle strength is really fierce, not bad, said Sovereign Zi Shao. His battle strength is not bad, said another man wearing a white robe. He had black hair and a white beard. Monarch No Beginning, do you also like this young man? Monarch Zi Shao asked Monarch No Beginning, who had black hair and a white beard. Based on his appearance, he seems to be the little fellow who defeated my sixth disciple in the boundless territory, said Sovereign No Beginning. There were a few sovereigns in the surrounding 100 worlds of the Nine Clouds world, but in terms of prestige, Sovereign No Beginning was the highest. So my disciple went to the boundless territory and didn't get anything because of him, said a green-haired man. Yao Yue, what do you mean by that? Could it be that your disciple is weak and you want to vent your anger on someone else? Asked Sovereign Xian Tian. He could hear that the green-haired man's tone wasn't very good. This has something to do with you, Xian Tian, said Sovereign Xian Tian. His eyes were like black holes. He comes from the profound sky world. What do you think? Sovereign Xian Tian's energy fluctuated. Yao Yue, don't get involved in the affairs of the younger generation. You can afford to lose face like this. My disciple also lost. So what if he lost, said Sovereign No Beginning. It's not that I can't, but I must have the 10,000 life limitless fruit. He has to hand it over, said Sovereign Xian Tian. Moon Demon, you're too arrogant. If you want it, then go ahead. Once the selection is over, we'll cheer everyone up and see if you have the ability to get the limitless longevity fruit. Black Heaven Sovereign was so angry that he laughed. He was already infuriated by Moon Demon Sovereign's arrogance. Yao Yu, I don't care how arrogant you usually are, but in the first saint ceremony of the 100 worlds, in the 9 heavens realm, you should behave yourself, said Yao Yu. Said Sovereign Zi Shao coldly. He wasn't happy either. If Yao Yu made a scene, it meant that he wasn't giving him any face. Moon Demon Monarch shook his green robe and looked at Black Heaven Monarch without saying anything. At this time, the preliminaries in the arena had reached a climax once again. There were too many people, and it was a mess when they started fighting. Under normal circumstances, no one would attack the Xian Celestial Realm camp. But now, they were all in a frenzy and attacked everyone they saw. Night Sorrow could only wield his spear and fight again. Qian Ziwei and the other 2 siblings started killing behind Night Sorrow. With Night Sorrow's strong attacks, Qian Ziwei and Qian Xiangwei's defense, Qian Yu support Night Sorrow, and the rest of the Xian Tian Imperial Court's people covering the back, everyone was safe. But the rest of the Xian Tian Imperial Court's people were not. When the battle started, some people were injured, pushed back, and some were killed. The 9 region origin Bead and Shao Kong were not idle either. They collected the storage rings and weapons of those who died in battle. The people in the arena were all peak saint kings and half-step king kings. They had accumulated a lot of resources in their lives. In the beginning, Night Sorrow did not know how many people he had killed. He had passed through the chaotic area and arrived at the 9 Heavens Tower. After all, some people did not dare to fight in front of the sovereigns. They were afraid. After stabilizing himself, Night Sorrow cupped his hands to the dozen or so sovereigns in the main seats. He then turned to face the arena. If anyone came to attack him, he would kill them. As Night Sorrow was on guard, the MC on the stage waved a red flag. Next, someone beside the main seat struck a large gong. The sound woke up the participants who were still fighting. Alright, the remaining 1,000 people continue to compete. Register your identity plates and go rest, the MC called out. After the battle ended, Night Sorrow put away his reincarnation spear. He shook his robes and became a calm and steady young man again. This young man is good. I like him, a white-robed woman said with a smile. Seven Reign Sovereign, don't try to poach him in front of me, the Xian Tian Imperial Court Sovereign said helplessly. Everyone likes talents. Everyone has to rely on their own abilities. Brother, no beginning, don't you think so? The white-robed Seven Reign Sovereign said with a smile. How should I say this? I won't comment. The beginning Sovereign shook his head. After registering their identity plates, Night Sorrow and the others returned to the Xian Celestial Realm seats. However, along the way, Shang Jingxian looked at Night Sorrow with a murderous gaze. After Night Sorrow's group of 4 led the Xiantian Imperial Court's people out, the others in the Xian Celestial Realm were not so lucky. Shang Jingxian and Yuan Han were not chased off, but Shang Jingchen and 2 other participants from the Tiannan Imperial Court were beaten off. Shang Jingchen was even seriously injured. Well done. Seeing Night Sorrow return, Qian Jinyu nodded at Night Sorrow. Yinyu also gave Night Sorrow a thumbs up because Night Sorrow could speak. Wu Lingfei knew Night Sorrow's strength, so she wasn't worried. However, she was worried that Night Sorrow lacked battle experience and would suffer losses. Yi Shang nodded. Although he was very confident in himself, he didn't underestimate his opponents at all. In Wu Lingfei's words, some of these people had lived for countless years. It was certain that they had trump cards. Brother Night Sorrow, don't hesitate when you go on stage. Victory is your only hope, Qian Ziwei said to Night Sorrow. Speak. Chapter 4. Chapter 10-13. I'm not a rookie, so don't worry. Night Sorrow smiled. He knew they were all worried about him. Yes. If you're lucky, you'll advance after 3 rounds. If you're unlucky, you'll have to fight again, said Qian Shuwei. Night Sorrow nodded. 100 people would be left. 500 would be eliminated in the first round, 250 would be eliminated in the second round, and 125 would be left in the third round. 50 of them would have to fight again to advance to the 4th round. Luck was more important at this time because the remaining people would all be experts. If you fought another round, you might be eliminated and lose your opportunity. After resting for 4 hours, the middle-aged man who had been standing on the high platform stood in front of the arena. Next will be the 2-on-1 battles. The winner will advance to the next round, and the loser will be eliminated. I'll first tell you the rules. No poison, soul avatars, or contract beasts are allowed. Anyone who violates this will be killed, announced the man. Normally, those who violated the rules would be eliminated. But this was the first sage's assembly. If you dared to violate the rules, you would be killed. Why, that's Yu Qiong King, Purple Firmament's eldest disciple. He's a high-level king, said Qian Jinyu to Qian Ziwei and the others. Seeing that everyone understood, King Yu Qiong added another rule. If they couldn't decide a winner within an hour, both of them would be eliminated. Night Sorrow thought about it and understood. If 2 people were familiar with each other, it would be impossible to stall for time and get a draw. Night Sorrow had thought that it would be just 2 people fighting in the arena. But that wasn't the case. There were many groups fighting at the same time. Otherwise, it would take a long time for 1,000 people to fight. The arena was rather big. In front of the main seat, someone had carved out 10 smaller arenas. As long as one was knocked out of the arena, it would be considered a loss. Following that, Sovereign King Yu Qiong took out a special raw stone from the hands of an attendant. It was a bamboo pot that could not be checked by soul power. Reaching out with his right hand, he sucked out 2 numbers and read them out. After the numbers were announced, 2 people walked onto the stage. Yu Qiong's king stretched out his arm and pointed at the first small arena. At this time, there was a king standing guard in front of each small arena. He was also a referee. 20 people were fighting at the same time, and the battle scene was very intense. Night Sorrow saw a ruthless person. It was a black-clothed old man, and he used a saber. The saber aura was very fierce, and it only took a moment for him to kill his opponent. Black Demon Sage King, ranked 5th in the first sage ceremony of the 100 Realms 3,000 years ago. Qian Ziwei took out a small booklet and gave it to Night Sorrow. She came from a monarch force, so she had a lot of information. The booklet contained the records of the last first saint of 100 worlds. Night Sorrow took a look and wrote it down. Then, he gave the little booklet to Qian Ziwei. His soul power was strong, so it was easy for him to write things down. Not only is this guy shameless, but he's also very cruel, Qian Yu said as he watched Black Fiend Saint walk down the arena. Yes, he's very murderous. But people who kill will be killed eventually, Night Sorrow said. No matter what, we have to be careful. They don't have much time left, so they're crazier. Their minds are even twisted, Qian Ziwei reminded her sister and brother, as well as Night Sorrow. Yi Sheng nodded. He was not afraid at all. He had comprehended 90% of the will of space. As long as it was not a sovereign king, he did not believe that any saint king or half-step sovereign king would be able to defeat him in an all-out battle. Chapter 10:14. After forcing his opponent to kneel on the ground, Night Sorrow hesitated and retreated. Now that he had won, he really did not want to kill all of them. Look at the original chapter, Section 1. After retreating a few steps, Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Yuqiong King. At this time, the peak stage Saint King who was originally kneeling on the ground switched to his left hand and jumped up, slashing towards the back of his head. If you must die, then I'll fulfill your wish. Yi Sheng roared and turned around. The reincarnation spear suddenly pierced out. This spear seemed to have passed through space and pierced the space between the peak Saint King's eyebrows, piercing through his head and spirit sea. With a shake of his arm, Night Sorrow retrieved his spear. With a twist of his left hand, he took the peak stage Saint King's blade and storage ring. Number 13, you won. It's good to be benevolent, but it's not suitable here, Yuqiong King said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow understands. You give others a chance, but they might not appreciate it. Night Sorrow sighed and returned to his seat. Little brother Night Sorrow, didn't I tell you not to hold back? You were persistent, but they are all crazy. They don't have any sense of shame, Qian Ziwei said to Night Sorrow. I feel that everyone should not only live for themselves, but also for their parents, wives, and children. Living is a complete family, so I don't want to destroy others. But in fact, I took it for granted. Night Sorrow laughed at himself, because reality had given him a hard slap in the face. The battle continued. Night Sorrow did not have anything to do in the first round. He did not consume much energy, he just watched others fight. Qian Ziwei, Qian Xiangwei, and Qian Yu went up one after another. Qian Ziwei and Qian Yu both won easily, but Qian Xiangwei met a strong opponent. She won the battle, but it was very difficult. 13. Have you thought it through? You have a benevolent heart, but you can't do it here. People are being rude to you. You can't let anything happen to you. You've affected too many people's hearts, Aoi said. I understand, 6th senior sister. Let's kill. If we're going to kill, let's kill to our heart's content. Night Sorrow pulled out a wine jug and took a swig. His aura changed. Seeing the change in Night Sorrow's aura, Aoi and the others felt at ease. The elimination round was relatively slow. After all, 500 groups of people needed a long time to fight. In the evening, the 500th round of battles finally ended. However, at this time, Zi Shao King stood up and said, although there is still some time today, everyone is very nervous on the first day. That's all for today. Go back and prepare for the battles tomorrow. Qian Zhenyu, Yinyu, and the other king of the Celestial Realm led the participants and spectators of the Celestial Realm back to the guest house. Qian Zhenyu and Yinyu chatted with Night Sorrow for a while. They didn't mention today's battles. They just chatted casually. They knew that Night Sorrow already had a summary of today's battles, so there was no need to talk about it. That would only put pressure on Night Sorrow. At this time, Xiantian King, and No Beginning King came to the guest house. Behind No Beginning King were Qing Yin, Chen Bai, and Hei Feng. Xian Zhenyu and Yunyu stood up and cupped their hands. Night Sorrow and the others also stood up. Great Ancestor, why are you here? Qian Zhenyu asked. No Beginning King wanted to come and take a look, so I came with him, Xiantian King said. You're Night Sorrow. Qing Yin is my disciple. You helped her solve her lifespan problem. I'm very grateful, No Beginning King said. Lord Monarch, you're too polite, Night Sorrow cupped his hands and said. Huh, not bad. Okay, you know my disciple. You can chat. If you have time, you can come to Endless Mountain. No Beginning King nodded at Night Sorrow and then left the guest house with Xiantian King. It's very stressful, Zhu Jiuyun said. How can it not be stressful? He's a monarch, standing at the peak of the king realm. He's the one who sets the rules. Night Sorrow looked at his 3 wives and said. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow went to meditate and rest. He had some things to digest today because a few experts had appeared. Black Fury Holy King was very strong, and Slaughter Holy King was even stronger. Although they had the title of Holy King, the Half-Step King should be the strongest among the Half-Step King realm. Yi Shang had a rough estimation in his heart. 3,000 years ago, they were able to get into the top 10 of the first saint of the 100 realms. At that time, they should be at the pinnacle of cultivators below the sovereign king realm. Although Yi Shang felt that their achievements would not be great and their comprehension was average, they were still strong. After resting for a night, Night Sorrow washed up. When he went to the courtyard, Yu Qing put on Night Moon's king battle suit for Night Sorrow. You have to be careful today. Don't be like yesterday. Mother, don't worry. I won't be soft today. Since I've chosen this path, I can only go down it, Night Sorrow said. Then, under the lead of Qian Zhenyu, Yunyu, and another king, the participants of the Xian celestial realm came to the square. There were only 500 people fighting today. After 2 fights, there were only a little more than 100 people left. The remaining 50 people would fight to determine the top 100. In other words, the top 100 would be decided after 3 rounds at most. As for the ranking of the last 100 people, it was a little more complicated. First, they would enter the Zhouxiao Tower to see who had the highest height. At the same time, they would get a title. However, this ranking was not the final ranking. It was just a temporary ranking. After the ranking of the tower was out, those with a lower ranking could challenge if they were not convinced. Of course, they couldn't challenge whoever they wanted. Everyone had 10 chances to challenge. Each time, they couldn't exceed the top 10 of their own ranking. Also, there couldn't be 2 challenges. Night Sorrow felt that this method was very reasonable. This competition was based on real strength. There would be no luck or coincidence. Whoever was better would go up. After drawing lots, the battle started again. In the second call, it was Night Sorrow's turn. His opponent was an old man who was also a half-step king. Do you admit defeat? Once the battle starts, it will only be life and death, Night Sorrow asked as he waved his reincarnation spear. The old man didn't say anything and directly attacked with his saber. Night Sorrow waved his spear and began to fight. With the support of Night Sorrow's 90% willpower, the old man was no match for him. Night Sorrow killed him with his 7th spear strike. Night Sorrow cupped his hands to Yu Qiong and King before returning to his seat. Not bad. You can't blame anyone for seeking death, Qian Ziwei said with a smile. Night Sorrow, if you're lucky, you'll advance after another battle, said Qian Yu. You have to be careful. Night Sorrow reminded him because the remaining cultivators were all experts. It wasn't easy to win every battle. Qian Yu nodded. He knew that Night Sorrow had won easily. That was because Night Sorrow was strong. If they were on the same level, the battle wouldn't end so quickly. Next was Qian Ziwei's turn. Her opponent was very strong. He was a half-step king who had grasped the will of wind. He relied on his speed to tangle with Qian Ziwei. Speak. Chapter 10-15. Just as Yi Shang and the others were getting anxious, the situation changed. Qian Ziwei's mysterious heaven sword art suddenly changed direction. Her sword aura became sharp and powerful. Waves of sword energy flew through the air, creating a sharp whistling sound. After changing her sword technique, Qian Ziwei's body shined with a black light. Her speed also increased. Her opponent no longer had an advantage in speed. He was suppressed by Qian Ziwei, and after one of his arms was chopped off, he shouted loudly and admitted defeat. Darkness-type sword intent. Night Sorrow muttered. He hadn't expected Qian Ziwei to have two types of sword intent. Normally, she only used the lightning-type sword intent. She had never used the darkness-type sword intent. After winning, Qian Ziwei returned to her seat. "Big sister, are you feeling unwell?" asked Qian Ziwei worriedly. "I'm fine. I'm fine." Qian Ziwei shook her head. "What's going on?" Night Sorrow could see that Qian Ziwei's condition wasn't very good. "Darkness-type sword intent is harmful to my big sister's body, so she usually doesn't use it in battle," said Qian Ziwei. Looking at Qian Ziwei, Night Sorrow took out a few drops of life elixir and gave it to her. "This is good for your body. Try it." Qian Ziwei took a drop of the life elixir and began to recover. An hour later, Qian Ziwei was back to peak condition. "Your elixir is pretty good." "Thank you," said Qian Ziwei as she stretched. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, as long as it doesn't affect the next battle. "Big Sister Ziwei, I'm sorry I couldn't help you," said Night Sorrow. Because Qian Ziwei had been defeated, her condition hadn't been very good. She couldn't hold on against a strong opponent. Qian Yu had passed, but it hadn't been easy. "Night Sorrow, the next round won't be easy," said Qian Yu as he rubbed his forehead. He didn't have much confidence. "Yes, there are no weak opponents." "Every round won't be easy," said Qian Ziwei. After the first round, only half of the 500 people had passed. King Yu Qiong told everyone to rest. The second round would begin in 2 hours. After resting for 2 hours, the second round began. Those who advanced to the next round had a chance to enter the top 100 and obtain a reward. After the second round began, Night Sorrow waited quietly, but it was still not his turn to fight. Qian Ziwei advanced, and so did Shang Jingxian. However, Qian Yu failed. It wasn't because he wasn't strong, but because he was unlucky enough to meet Qing Yin. Qing Yin was the third disciple of No Beginning Sovereign. Although she was not the king, she was the top of the half-step king's attention. Qian Yu was naturally no match for her. The battles progressed one by one. Night Sorrow was the last to go up. He had seen his opponent before. It was Yu Wuhan from the Demon Moon Realm. "Do you admit defeat?" Yi Shang asked after he stepped onto the stage with the reincarnation spear in hand. Yi Shang would always ask this question before every battle because once the battle began, he wouldn't hold back and would kill his opponent. "You think too much. Last time, because Chen Bai and Hei Feng were in the way, you were able to take the limitless longevity fruit. Today, I, Yu Wuhan, will kill you and take back what belongs to me." After speaking, Yu Wuhan's body flashed as he charged at Night Sorrow. "Then let's see what you're capable of." Night Sorrow did not move. He unsheathed his reincarnation spear and the tip of the spear collided with Yu Wuhan's sword. Following a crisp sound, Yu Wuhan was pushed back by Night Sorrow's spear. However, the robe on Night Sorrow's right arm was constantly trembling. That was the energy transmitted by the reincarnation spear. Night Sorrow's right arm shook and dispelled Yu Wuhan's soft and domineering energy. Following which, he used his innate bloodline energy to cut through the protective air barrier and caught up to Yu Wuhan. The reincarnation spear rapidly attacked. Yu Wuhan's body floated back and at the same time, she used her sword to block Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear attack. In fact, Yu Wuhan's sword attack was very fast. However, Night Sorrow's will of space accelerated even faster. Before Yu Wuhan could fully exert her strength, Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear attack arrived. This kind of situation made Yu Wuhan very passive. She was unable to fully exert her strength and her energy was unable to fully burst forth. How could she be compared to Night Sorrow, who had a strong body? After suppressing Yu Wuhan, Night Sorrow's spear technique changed. He changed from the power of Desolates to the Void True Chi and directly executed the Void Extreme Kill. As Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear burst forth with a purple halo, the long sword in Yu Wuhan's hand was directly annihilated from the tip. As Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear pierced forward, the long sword in Yu Wuhan's hand was instantly destroyed. Yu Wuhan's expression changed when the Saint King longsword in her hand was destroyed. She quickly retreated. However, Night Sorrow's will of space and the law of Desolates were used at the same time. His speed reached an extreme. As he advanced, Night Sorrow's left hand spun and energy burst forth to restrain Yu Wuhan. Following which, the reincarnation spear directly pierced Yu Wuhan's chest. Just as Night Sorrow's energy burst forth and was about to destroy Yu Wuhan, he suddenly couldn't move. His entire body was suppressed by the powerful will of the world. He couldn't move at all and couldn't circulate his energy. At this time, a long sword appeared in Yu Wuhan's hand and directly pierced towards Night Sorrow's chest. Yu Wuhan, how dare you! The Purple Firmament Sovereign, who had been sitting in the main seat, stood up and directly sent a palm strike towards Yu Wuhan. You're courting death. The Black Heaven Sovereign also stood up, but he didn't attack. If the Purple Firmament Sovereign attacked, it would be 2 against 1. His reputation wouldn't be good. The Black Heaven Sovereign waved his hand to resolve the suppression of Night Sorrow by Yu Wuhan's longsword. At the same time, Yu Wuhan's longsword stabbed towards Night Sorrow's chest. At this time, everyone who cared about Night Sorrow stood up. They all knew that Night Sorrow had been attacked by Yu Wuhan. Yu Wuhan's attack was very fast. She directly stabbed Night Sorrow's chest 9 times in a row. Night Sorrow's body was sent flying. His robes were torn apart, but there was no blood on Night Sorrow's body. Under his torn robes, there were only a few white marks on his body. He waved his spear and forced Yu Wuhan back. Night Sorrow waved his left hand and a robe appeared on his body. Then he put on his robes. The monarchs attacked me. Very good. Today, there are no rules. Die. Night Sorrow's body flickered as he attacked Yu Wuhan. Yu Wuhan's expression changed. She didn't understand why she hadn't killed Night Sorrow a moment before. Night Sorrow was still at the peak of his strength. How could she fight against him? She could only dodge quickly. Being killed by Night Sorrow would only be a matter of time. At that moment, a great battle was going on in the sky. The Purple Firmament Sovereign and the Moon Demon King were still fighting, but the Purple Firmament Sovereign was suppressing the Moon Demon King. How dare you! What do you think the continent of the 9 clouds is? At that moment, an old man in cyan robes appeared out of nowhere. Let's go, shouted the Moon Demon King. He waved his sleeve and sent Night Sorrow flying. Then, he wrapped Yu Wuhan in his energy and ran away. Yu Wuhan, you fought against my fellow disciple today. I won't bully you. But remember, if you dare come to the continent of the 9 clouds again, I'll kill you, said the old man in cyan robes. Speak. Chapter 10:16. The old man was wearing a green robe with a special pattern. His hair, eyebrows, and beard were all white, but he didn't look old at all. Greetings, Monarch Shen Shao. At this time, all the sovereigns cupped their hands towards the old man. What have you done? That young man is fine, but if something had happened, how would we explain to the world that the first sacred ceremony of the 100 worlds can still be held in the future? The old man roared at the group of sovereigns. Senior brother, it's my fault. Monarch Zi Shao bowed to the old man. Humph, after so many years, you still haven't matured. Young man, come here. Are you okay? The old man waved at Night Sorrow. Thank you for your concern, Monarch. Night Sorrow is fine. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the old man. Brat, you sure are ruthless. Even though it was an emergency and I couldn't use my full strength, I still couldn't break through your physical body's defense. You will continue to get stronger. Zi Shao, watch carefully. If anything goes wrong again, I will teach you a lesson. The green-robed elder's body flashed twice and disappeared. Monarch King, I won this round, right? Night Sorrow looked at King Yuqiong and asked. Naturally, you won. You can go rest. Monarch Yuqiong was stunned for a moment before nodding. He didn't expect this to happen. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the monarch and returned to his seat. 13, are you okay? Seeing Night Sorrow return, Aoi held Night Sorrow's hand and asked. I'm fine. I just didn't expect to be tricked by the monarchs. Night Sorrow looked at the retreating Moon Demon World people. Night Sorrow, I want to ask, are you a human or some kind of gifted beast? Don't worry, no matter what race you are, we're brothers. Xian Yu looked at Night Sorrow and asked. What nonsense are you talking about? My parents are still here. Night Sorrow glared at Xian Yu. Uncle, Auntie, don't mind me. I don't know how to talk. Xian Yu apologized to Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing. It's fine. You're just being honest, Yi Wuyo said. After Night Sorrow rested for 2 hours, the 50 people were selected to fight. After eliminating 25 people, the remaining people would enter the top 100 of the first Saints of the 100 Worlds. However, Night Sorrow's luck wasn't bad. He didn't get picked this time, which meant that he would enter the top 100 for sure. Something unexpected happened today. The challenge of the 9 Heavens Tower will be set for tomorrow, Sovereign Zi Shao said. The main thing was that time didn't allow for it. The 25 people who advanced later also needed to rest before fighting again. Yi Shang and the others returned to the guest house. Your Majesty, that cyan-robed elder is very powerful, Yi Shang said to Qian Jinyu after they entered the guest tower. Yes, he's the most virtuous and bad-tempered monarch of the 100 Worlds. If there's a conflict between monarchs, he'll be the one to resolve it. No one won't give him face. The main thing is that he's strong. In the past, when the Swift Gale monarch messed around and didn't follow the rules, he killed him, said Qian Jinyu. He's bad-tempered, but he's reasonable. He hates people who don't follow the rules. This time, the Moon Demon monarch caused a big mess, said Yunyu. Is he retarded? He knows the Divine Night monarch's temper isn't good, but he still went looking for trouble, said Qian Ziwei. Normally, the Divine Night monarch doesn't show his face. Who knew that the Moon Demon monarch would suddenly appear? The Moon Demon monarch is unlucky, said Qian Jinyu. But Night Sorrow might be held a grudge against him. He's a potential threat, said Qian Yu. The moon-worshipping clansmen of the Moon Demon world are eccentric. They're really hard to deal with. You should be careful in the future, reminded Yun Yu to Night Sorrow. Then Night Sorrow returned to his room. Today's battle had shocked him greatly. A battle between monarchs was too terrifying. When he had fought with Yu Wuhan, the shockwaves from the battle between the Purple Firmament monarch and the Invitation monarch had greatly suppressed him. Tomorrow is the ranking battle. Today's matter is over. However, this kind of thing can happen again. We have to be careful at all times. Wu Lingfei said to Yi Shang. Aunt Fei, I understand. Today was probably an accident. With the Divine Night Monarch's deterrence, there shouldn't be any big problems, said Night Sorrow after thinking for a moment. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, if he's a gentleman, then it's fine to offend him. The most despicable people are the despicable ones. The Moon Demon Monarch attacked you, which shows that he has no bottom line. He might hold a grudge and seek revenge, said Wu Lingfei. Night Sorrow nodded. The fact that the Moon Demon Monarch attacked him meant that there was something wrong. In his heart, his self-interest was paramount. He didn't care about rules or morals. It was very likely that he would deal with him in the future. The reason was simple. Because of Night's sorrow, he had lost face and had to flee. After Wu Lingfei left Night's sorrow's room, Night's sorrow lay on the big bed. He didn't need to cultivate now. What he needed was to relax and prepare for tomorrow's battle. At this time, Qian Zhenyu and his wife were talking. Zhenyu, the situation isn't very good. We know what the people of the Moon Demon world are like. This time, because of Night's sorrow, they've lost face. I think they'll seek revenge, said Yunyu. Let's not talk about this for now. It's the time of the competition. Night's sorrow can't be affected too much. When the competition is over, we'll remind him, said Qian Zhenyu. After resting for the night, Yi Shang woke up early. After washing his face and rinsing his mouth, Yi Shang waved his reincarnation spear in the courtyard and stretched his muscles. Then Qian Zhenyu and the others took the people of the Xian celestial realm to the continent of the Nine-Cloud Square. At this time, only 4 people from the Xian celestial realm were going to enter the round of the first saint of the 100 worlds. They were Night's sorrow, Qian Ziwei, Shang Jingxian, and Yu Wenhan. Shang Jingxian had the blood of fury, which could increase his fighting capacity by 30%. It was a terrifying talent. There weren't many contestants today, but there were more and more people watching. After all, it was the key to enter the round of the first saint of the 100 worlds. They could get a title. A title was a symbol of achievement. They could also get some luck. Night's sorrow also noticed that the people of the Moon Demon world had retreated. It should be said that they had been expelled. What the Moon Demon monarch had done made the leaders of the continent of the 9 clouds unhappy. The other monarchs didn't like him either. Today's competition is to pass the continent of the 9 clouds tower. Whoever passes the highest will be temporarily ranked first. Of course, the continent of the 9 clouds tower also has a title certification. You know what it means. I won't tell you, said King Yu Qiong. Brother Night's sorrow, you have to work hard. This title is really important, said Qian Ziwei to remind Night's sorrow. Don't worry, Sister Ziwei. I'll work hard, said Night's sorrow nodding. She said. Chapter 4. Chapter 10:17. The nature of Jiuxiao Tower was similar to that of the Ceiling Sky Palace. It was Dao. She looked confused. There are talents in every generation. Seems like he's destined to be the most dazzling one. He's too young. He's a king in 100 years. If he can enter the king realm before he's 200 years old, he'll be a legend, said King No Beginning. Cultivation is one thing. The main thing is that he has fighting power that matches and surpasses his cultivation. I don't know whose disciple he is. Does Xian Tian know? King Zi Shao asked King Xian Tian. I know a little about him. He's from a small world. His teacher in the small world hasn't entered the saint realm yet. He doesn't have a teacher in Tianxian world. He's a disciple of the Tianding Gate. I think he's a Saint King alchemist, said King Xian Tian, stroking his beard. The natives of a small world can actually be so heaven-defying and tyrannical. The monarch of the Yuan spirit world sighed with emotion. King Yuan Ling, there's hatred in our generation, but don't involve the young people, said King Xian Tian, looking at King Yuan Ling. Xian Tian, we have fought for countless years, and we will continue to fight in the future. But please remember that I, Yuan Ling, am not a petty person. You should be careful of that bastard Yao Yu, said Sovereign Yuan Ling. King Xian Tian nodded. He knew that Night's sorrow had provoked a mad dog. The moon-worshipping clan of the Moon Demon world were all mad. They were vengeful. Why are the 100 worlds of the continent of the 9 clouds so stable? It's because we fight on small matters. We know what's right and what's wrong. The continent of the 9 clouds is strong, so the other worlds don't dare to provoke us. We can fight, but we can't do things without rules. As for the Moon Demon world, we'll see how to deal with it later, said King Zi Shao. Hearing King Zi Zhao's words, all the kings nodded. Night Sorrow had reached the 100th step. Almost everyone was at the same level, but their states were different. The half-step king realm cultivators who had strong rules and willpower didn't consume much energy. The half-step king, whose power of rules and power of will were weak, and the peak saint king, who had not grasped the power of will and only had strong battle prowess, had already expended a lot of energy at this time. Night Sorrow ignored the people around him and continued forward. He had not used any other energy yet, mainly because his body was strong enough to withstand it. Saint King Slaughter, Black Demon Saint King, and a few other contestants noticed Night Sorrow because Night Sorrow's performance was indeed dazzling. As they advanced, Night Sorrow released the spatial rule. This way, they could advance faster and offset a portion of the suppression. With the law of space resisting the pressure, Night Sorrow's progress was much smoother. Gradually, he overtook a portion of the others and entered the first echelon. Qian Ziwei, who was not far away from Night Sorrow, was confused. She did not understand what was going on with Night Sorrow. Even in the area where the peak Saint King's energy was suppressed, Night Sorrow was still able to walk freely. This was something no one else could do. It was true that everyone was able to advance, but it was as tiring as fighting. However, Night Sorrow was still as carefree as ever. Say. Chapter 10:18. How stylish, said the Seven Rain Monarch as he pointed at the armrest of his chair as he watched Night Sorrow's white robes flutter in the wind. Temperament and poise are innate. Even if their head is cut off the next moment, some people can still maintain their composure. This is a type of temperament and aura, the Purple Cloud Sovereign said. He is still young. Whether or not he can enter the king's realm is still a question. There is no point in praising him like this, an old man sitting next to the no-beginning sovereign said. This old man had silver hair and a silver beard. There was a hint of coldness in his fierce eyes. He was the head of the Grey Cloud sect, the Grey Cloud Sovereign. He had heard Song Weiyue mention Night Sorrow before, so he was a little unhappy when he heard a group of people talking about Night Sorrow. The Seven Rain Sovereign looked at the Grey Cloud Sovereign and did not say anything. She did not like the way the Grey Cloud Sovereign spoke, but she did not want to offend him directly. After Night Sorrow crossed the 900th step, his body trembled because the pressure suddenly increased. It was not the pressure of a Saint King. The pressure contained the power of will. It was a pressure that attacked one's soul. Since he could not use the 9 regions origin bead, Night Sorrow planned to use the Spacetime Treasure Pagoda to defend his deity C. However, at that moment, the golden light of virtue outside Night Sorrow's deity C reacted. It blocked the pressure from Night Sorrow's deity C. Night Sorrow's body also changed. A solemn golden light appeared behind his head. Light of virtue, the mysterious heaven sovereign said with some surprise. A young man with virtue who has contributed to heaven and earth. Interesting. The no-beginning sovereign narrowed his eyes and sized up Night Sorrow. The power of virtue was too difficult to obtain. Many people wanted to have it, but it was very difficult to do so. However, Night Sorrow's light of virtue had taken shape. It could even be used for defense. Night Sorrow was also shocked. He did not expect the light of virtue to be able to defend against the divine sea. The soul-suppressing energy was blocked. Night Sorrow's will of space supported the space law and continued forward. When the boundless energy reached Night Sorrow, most of it landed on empty space. It was as if Night Sorrow was not in this space. Night Sorrow continued to advance. The other contestants who had reached this level were not so relaxed. They had to pay a huge price to advance. After advancing 100 steps, the pressure on Night Sorrow became even greater. There was no problem with the divine sense C, but the majestic pressure on the steps made it difficult for him to bear. Taking a deep breath, Night Sorrow's protective shield slashed forward, cutting the pressure energy. Original version. First after another 50 steps, Night Sorrow felt that this wasn't going to work. His will of space didn't have as much effect on the other elements as it did on the power of space. If his space energy ran out, it would be troublesome. After making up his mind, Night Sorrow switched his protective shield. The power of desolates protected his body, and the will of space was added to the power of time. He continued to advance. At this time, only a small portion of the contestants who had reached level 900 could still walk. This was because the pressure from the will of soul was very difficult to bear. The ones closest to Night Sorrow were the Slaughter Holy King and Black Demon Holy King. 3,000 years ago, they had ranked third and fifth respectively. They were the best of their generation. 3,000 years had passed, and their comprehension could not keep up. They could not enter the King realm, but at least they did not regress. They were now rushing towards the will of heaven and earth cave. They did not have much lifespan left. To break through the 10,000-year lifespan limit in the Saint King realm, one had to have a breakthrough in life force. Night Sorrow could do it because his vitality was very strong. His body was almost entirely made of energy. Other than that, there were also those who were favored by the heavens and earth and had extraordinary talents. For example, Yan Huifeng of the Heavenly Cauldron sect was from the same era as Yao Qing. He had already lived for 20,000 years. The reason for this was because he was a demonic beast that had taken human form. His original form was an ice jiao, a water elemental life form. Of course, such situations were relatively rare. After advancing another step, the pressure changed again. This time, it was the suppression of will of heaven and earth. The energy also increased. Night Sorrow also increased his will of space to resist the will of Nine Heavens Treasure Pagoda's suppression. At this time, many of the contestants had taken pills. They were all high-grade pills that could instantly restore their cultivation. Night Sorrow was absorbing the space energy provided by Shao Kong to restore his space energy. The group continued to advance, but the difference in speed was huge. Night Sorrow was now at the front, which meant that he was at the highest height. Everyone else was behind him. After reaching level 400, the will of heaven and earth increased again. Night Sorrow's power of desolates had been greatly depleted, so he switched to nihility energy. Instead of slowing down, his speed increased. At this time, many of the contestants could no longer move forward because the suppression was too strong. In addition, this stage was not a stage where they had to fight to the death. There was also a ranking challenge. They felt that this was the way. It's not that simple. Without will of heaven and earth, you won't be able to get there. Others don't have this ability. Slaughter Saint King, Black Demon Saint King, and my disciple haven't reached this level, Without King said. That's right. He is now infinitely close to King. If everything goes well, he can enter the will of heaven and earth cave. When he comes out, he will definitely be King. Purple Firmament's sovereign expressed his opinion. I'm interested in his title. Let's see what the Nine Heavens Pagoda will give him later, Seven Rain Sovereign said as he looked at Night Sorrow, who was meditating. At this time, there were peak-level Saint Kings and half-step Kings who couldn't withstand the pressure and fell down the Nine Heavens sky stairs. Then, they were expelled from the Nine Heavens Tower. The contestants who came out of the Nine Heavens Tower all had a golden light appear above their heads. Then, they were given a title. Everyone's title was different. Isn't the title chosen by oneself? Aoi asked Thousand Rose, who was beside her. No. The Nine Heavens Tower can sense a cultivator's soul. It can even investigate and give the most suitable title, Thousand Rose said with a sigh. She had lost this opportunity. Speak. Chapter 1019. C_T, Genius 1 second Remember Love/Go/Little? I'll provide you with some interesting novels to read. Aoi didn't say anything. She was worried about Night Sorrow's title. Night Sorrow had the title of Immortal Holy King in the Nine Regions world, which was a forbidden title. But what was his title in Jiuxiao Pagoda? Would it be the same? In that case, would Yi Shang's title be rejected? Would he fail to get a title? Yang Lei and Aoi looked at each other. They were both worried. The birth of a forbidden title was a threat to Night Sorrow. Geniuses would be envied. If someone was jealous, they might have designs on Night Sorrow. Killing geniuses was something that many cultivators were willing to do. As time passed, many people couldn't withstand the pressure and left. Shang Jingxian came out too. He received the title of Tianjing Holy King. His title in Tiannan dynasty was Tianjing Crown Prince. Qian Ziwei came out too. Her title was Ziwei Holy King, which was the same as the rumors. Although it didn't change, more people would know the name Ziwei. It was also a blessing of fate. Then came Black Demon Holy King and Slaughter Holy King. Both of them had titles. When they came out of Joshua Pagoda, golden light appeared in their bodies. Then, it formed runes. The runes were blessed by the golden light in the air and then entered their bodies. At this moment, Night Sorrow heard a voice in his ear. Your situation is special. You have a body of merit and the power of the world is protecting you. You should have been recognized by a spatial world. But if you want to be recognized by me, you have to be tested. If I don't think you're suitable, I can't give you your original title. Please go to read a book. Night Sorrow thought for a moment. He knew that Joshua Pagoda was related to the origin of the world. It was a manifestation of the heavenly Tao. It wouldn't hurt him. He nodded. Yes, I have been recognized by a spatial world. I also have a title. You have the acknowledgement of another world's origin energy, and you have the blessing of virtue. This is the affirmation of the heavenly Tao. Now, release your protective energy. I want to know more about you. The voice once again rang out in Night Sorrow's ears. After hesitating for a moment, Night Sorrow withdrew his protective energy. At this moment, the pressure on the stairway of the 9 clouds still existed, but Night Sorrow no longer had the energy suppression around him. A moment later, the voice sounded again. With your situation, it wouldn't be too much to ask for a taboo title. What title do you have now? Yi Shang didn't hide anything and told him his title. Titled Undying is indeed very big, but it's also suitable. A voice rang out, confirming Night Sorrow's title. I don't want others to know about this. Senior, can you help me? Night Sorrow asked. Sure. After you leave this place, I will conceal your seal imprint and directly bless you with it. After the voice sounded out, Night Sorrow's body was also sent out of the 9 Clouds Pagoda. At this moment, the incense outside the 9 Clouds Pagoda had been extinguished, meaning that half a day had passed. Night Sorrow was the last to come out. At this moment, everyone wanted to know what title Night Sorrow, who was the last to come out of the 9 Clouds Pagoda, had. However, some people were also worried. Wu Ling concubine, Night Sorrow's parents, and the people around him were all worried. This was because once the word undying came out, the problem would be very serious. At this moment, the golden light above Night Sorrow's head shone brightly. Following this, 2 golden imprints appeared on his body. After the golden light in the sky buffed the golden imprints, the imprints were sent back into Night Sorrow's body. All of this happened very quickly, and no one noticed anything. This situation made Wu Ling concubine and the others feel relieved because Night Sorrow's situation hadn't been exposed. What's going on? Zi Xiao Monarch, why can't I see what this title is? 7 Rain Monarch looked at Zi Xiao Monarch and asked. This situation has never happened before. He definitely has a title, but we don't know what title it is. You all know that the 9 Clouds Pagoda is the place where the origin of the 9 Clouds Pagoda manifests. Brother and I can communicate sometimes, but we can't force it, said Zi Xiao Monarch. Let's arrange the meeting first. His title is his problem. Let's not get to the bottom of it. It's meaningless, said No Beginning Monarch. Everyone was very curious, but they didn't continue asking. The title was Night Sorrow's problem. Now, the first sage of the 100 worlds had to continue. Next, the rankings came out. Yi Shan was naturally first, followed by Slaughter Saint King, then Black Demon Saint King. Qian Ziwei was naturally outside the top 10. Shang Jingshuan's ranking was also very high, in the 20s. His bloodline talent was berserk, and his amplification was very high, so he could compete in the Nine Heavens Tower. Qing Yin was 5th. Her 10,000 years of cultivation was not fake. Chen Bai's ranking was also not bad, in the 20s. He Feng was behind him. Knight Sorrow didn't know the rest, but he would definitely cross paths with them because he had to face some challenges. No one was jealous of the first place. There were too many people staring at him. Knight Sorrow wasn't worried. He knew that what he needed to do next was to fight fiercely and make a deterrent force. Then, no one would have any ideas about him. After Sovereign King Yuqiong announced the current rankings, today's assembly came to an end. Cultivators had a long lifespan, so the progress of the assembly was not in a hurry. Besides, the current state of the participants was not very good, so they all needed to go back and recuperate. Qing Yin, Chen Bai, and He Feng all congratulated Knight Sorrow. Some people didn't know Knight Sorrow, so they thought it might be because of luck. However, Qing Yin and the other two knew that Knight Sorrow's ranking was definitely deserved. After returning to his residence, Knight Sorrow brewed a pot of heart-cleansing tea. Look at the original OD. Knight Sorrow, this time, it's your responsibility to clear the name of the Xian celestial realm, Qian Yu said. Although he had failed, he wasn't discouraged. Sister Ziwei is here. Sister Ziwei can do it, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. What can I do? The people in front are all fierce. My goal is to get into the top 10. It's fine as long as I can get in, Qian Ziwei said with a smile. At this point, no one dared to boast because every battle meant that they would be fighting against an expert. 13. There are probably many people eyeing the first place. Be careful, Aoi reminded Knight Sorrow. Don't worry. If they want to challenge me, they have to get into the top 10 no matter what. It's not that easy to get into the top 10. Now, those in the top 10 have to defend their positions first before they can challenge me, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. The rules of the challenge weren't complicated. It started from the 100th place. After the 100th place, the winner would swap places with the loser. Then, it would be the 99th place. The 99th place couldn't challenge the two people who had just fought. If they won, they would advance. If they lost, they would keep their original position. Then, it would be the 98th place, and so on. They couldn't challenge people who had fought within 3 rounds. This way, the challenge would go on for 10 rounds. Well, 10 rounds. That's more troublesome. Yang Lei said. Chapter 1020. C_T, Genius 1 second remember love/go/little? Shaw on Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Please go here to read. Third sister, don't challenge Knight Sorrow. Even if you're in front of him, don't touch him, Luo Qisha reminded Qing Yin. Don't worry, brother. I'm not an ungrateful person, Qing Yin said with a smile. Don't talk about being ungrateful. Don't challenge him either. He's too strong. You're not his match. If I'm not wrong, he'll start attacking you, Luo Qisha said. Don't worry, brother. I know what I'm doing. But this guy is really special. He entered the pressure zone of King's territory and didn't get hit, Qing Yin murmured. What does that mean? It means he's strong enough to enter the pressure zone of King's territory. His strength is infinitely close to that of King. If Slaughter Saint King and Black Demon Saint King don't have sharp eyes, they'll die this time, Luo Qisha said. I don't know what his title is. I'm curious about that, He Feng said. I want to know too, but my teacher and the other kings don't know. Maybe he's the only one who knows, Luo Qisha said. That's not right. We know about Jiuxiao Tower. It's the place where the original strength of Jiuxiao realm manifests. Isn't the birth of a titled cultivator announced to the world? Why is it so mysterious? He Feng said. Luo Qisha also fell into deep thought. After pondering for a while, he raised his head and looked at his junior brother and sister. I thought of a problem. 2 golden light seals were drawn out from his body. They were originally there. The 9 heavens pagoda's golden light only strengthened them. This means that his situation is similar to Slaughter Saint King and Black Demon Saint King. He already had a title before. Chen Bai and Hei Feng looked at each other and didn't say anything. They knew Night Sorrow, but they didn't know him well. In fact, Luo Qixia was not the only one who had such an analysis. The other sovereigns also had such thoughts. Otherwise, there was no reasonable explanation. After returning to the guest house, Night Sorrow felt a lot more at ease, because his title did not cause any big problems. If the title of Immortal Saint King was exposed, then he would not be able to walk in front of others, because there would definitely be a lot of people who had designs on him. Night Sorrow, the next stage is the most dangerous because this is the last stage. Everyone wants to be number 1, said Wu Lingfei. Don't worry, Auntie Fei. I'll kill anyone who dares to challenge me. No matter who it is, even if it's a descendant of a great power, I won't hold back. If they want to step on me, they'll have to pay the price. Night Sorrow said. That's what you have to do. If you don't go all out, then you won't be intimidating. Then you really have to endure 10 rounds of challenges. If you kill a few at the beginning, then no one will touch you in the next few rounds. Xian Yu also agreed with Night Sorrow. Xian Ziwei also wouldn't challenge Night Sorrow. Sister Ziwei, I'm sorry. I didn't think before I spoke. Night Sorrow looked at Xian Ziwei with some embarrassment. Haha. What are you thinking? Sister Ziwei won't challenge you. Just kill. Some people can't be spoiled, said Xian Ziwei with a smile. Then, everyone went to rest. Qian Zhenyu and his wife talked to their daughter and son. They mainly talked to Qian Ziwei. Ziwei, the first few rounds don't have much meaning. You have to conserve your strength. Just stand at the front and observe others. Once you're familiar with your target, then fight with all your strength. Just be in the top 10, said Yunyu to Qian Ziwei. I understand. This is a strategy. I'll also talk to Night Sorrow and ask him to do the same. He doesn't have enough experience, said Qian Ziwei. Silly girl, he's different from you. He's already in the first place, so he can't come down easily. He'll kill whoever he wants. He doesn't need any strategy, said Qian Zhenyu as he shook his head. After being stunned for a moment, Qian Ziwei nodded. She also understood the logic. Different positions meant different tactics. Father, mother, this brother of mine is quite powerful, right? Said Qian Yu with a smile. Qian Zhenyu and Yunyu both smiled. They knew in their hearts that Night Sorrow wasn't just powerful. In this year's first sage ceremony, Night Sorrow was destined to be the most dazzling. If he could reach the top of the 9 heavens pagoda, as long as his actual combat ability wasn't weak, he was destined to have a good ranking. Night Sorrow's actual combat ability was weak? No one believed this because during the selection, Night Sorrow had slaughtered everyone. At that time, although there were good and bad contestants, there weren't any rookies. After resting for a night, Night Sorrow washed up, tidied up his robe, and casually waved the reincarnation spear to warm up his body. The Qian sisters watched from the side. They didn't understand what Night Sorrow was cultivating when he waved the reincarnation spear at the half-step king's level. This was because Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear had no energy, laws, or willpower. It was just a simple swing of the spear. After Night Sorrow put away the spear, he put it back in the holster on his back. At this time, Qian Ziwei asked. She couldn't suppress her curiosity and wanted to know what Night Sorrow was cultivating. I didn't cultivate anything. For many years, I have this habit. When I have nothing to do, I will wave the spear in the morning to warm up my muscles and bones. I want to find the feeling of the spear. Night Sorrow said with a smile. I thought you were cultivating some heaven-defying consummate skill. Qian Ziwei looked at Night Sorrow with disdain. Sister Ziwei, you think too much. When we are ready, we will set off. I don't know how many days the 10 battles will take. Knight Sorrow knew that Qian Ziwei and the others were waiting for him. Soon after, the group arrived at the Nine Heavens Square. There were more people than before. Today, the battles would start in pairs. It was a real battle between experts. In addition, the situation of the arena was different from a few days ago. It was newly arranged. At the edge of the arena, there was a row of chairs. Knight Sorrow glanced at it and found that there were exactly 100 chairs. This meant that those were the seats of the top 100 participants of the first sage ceremony. You have seen it. Now, go to your seats. Sit according to the ranking of the Nine Heavens Tower. King Yuqiong said to Knight Sorrow and the other participants who had entered the top 100. Hearing Sovereign Yuqiong's words, the participants who had entered the top 100 started to sit down. Knight Sorrow was the last to sit down. His seat was very close to the main seat of the sovereigns. After seeing Knight Sorrow sit down, the 7 Rain sovereigns smiled and nodded at Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow cupped his hands in return. He knew that those who could sit in the main seat were all powerful people. When he cupped his hands in return, Knight Sorrow was facing all the sovereigns. They were all seniors. Those who could cultivate to the sovereign realm were worthy of respect. When they saw Knight Sorrow cupping his hands, the other sovereigns nodded. Only the Grey Cloud Sovereign ignored Knight Sorrow. Chapter 1021. C_T, Genius 1 second Remember Love Go/Small? I'll provide you with a wonderful novel to read. Read the full text. Then, Yuqiong King walked to the middle of the arena. Everyone knows the rules. However, to prevent any mistakes, I'll repeat it again. You are not allowed to use soul doppelgangers or poison. You are allowed to forfeit. Forfeiting 1 round is only the result of 1 round. You can continue to fight in the next round. Yuqiong King explained the challenge mode in detail. After explaining the rules, Yuqiong King bowed to the main seat. Alright, you may begin. The Purple Cloud Sovereign nodded. With the Purple Cloud Sovereign's words, the ranking challenge officially began. First, it was the 100th place. He stood on the arena and pointed at the 93rd place. It looked like he was pointing at random, but in fact, it was not. In fact, all the contestants had done some research on who they could challenge and who they couldn't. Knight Sorrow didn't do that because it was his last battle. He could watch the previous battles. Besides, even if he checked the information, he could only find the surface. Some people's unique skills couldn't be found out. Some things on the surface were useless. Permanent S exempt 0, fee look equals, small 5 says E after fighting for half an hour, the 100th place really won. He changed seats with the 93rd place. The new 100th place had just fought, so naturally, he couldn't continue to fight. The next battle was the challenge of the 99th place. The 99th place wasn't as lucky as the previous one, so he failed the challenge. Then, the battle went on. There were people specifically recording it, so there wouldn't be any mistakes. This time, it didn't stop in the evening. When the sky turned dark, a bonfire was lit in the arena. The challenge mode was a cycle of battles. They had to fight until the end. In such a cycle of challenges, there was no rest. Because after a round, the person who started the challenge would have rested. When the bonfire was lit, the 50th place was challenged. Knight Sorrow watched other people's battles and learned from their battle experience. To be honest, Knight Sorrow's battle power was strong, but his real battle experience was still lacking compared to others. Knight Sorrow was young, so he didn't have much contact with peak stage Saint Kings and half-step King Saints. These contestants had lived for thousands of years. His experience wasn't as good as theirs. This scene was what he needed. There were all kinds of cultivators, and all kinds of styles. This was also the reason why there were so many people watching outside the arena. This was a chance to increase one's experience and knowledge. At this moment, Night Sorrow turned his head and realized that Saint King Slaughter was looking at him. 3,000 years ago, there were two ferocious fellows. That time, I had no choice but to take third place. This time, I'll fight it out with you. Saint King Slaughter looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Then, let's do it." Night Sorrow nodded at Saint King Slaughter. He felt that although Saint King Slaughter was murderous, he was still an upright person. There was only fighting spirit in his eyes, and there was no evil. "Young man, you're amazing. I admire you. You're willing to give it one more shot before the end of your life. Even if you can't break through, you won't have any regrets." Saint King of Slaughter turned his head and said. These words were not only for Night Sorrow, but also for himself. When the opportunity comes, naturally, you'll break through. If you don't break through, it's because the opportunity hasn't arrived yet. "The time isn't right yet," Night Sorrow replied. "Good. Well said. If you and I don't die after this challenge, we'll drink until we're drunk," Saint King of Slaughter said. "I won't die. I'll wait for you," Night Sorrow said. "You're talking too big. It's not up to you to decide whether you'll die or not." Black Demon Sage King, who was ranked third, narrowed his eyes at Night Sorrow. "Remember this saying well. If you don't seek death, you won't die. If you want to seek death, then no one will stop you." Night Sorrow replied. He hated people who didn't do anything but open their mouths to bite people. "You're the one who keeps seeking death." Shang Zhengxian, who was still some distance away from Night Sorrow, continued the conversation. "I can't win against you guys. You've won. Let's talk with our strength on the arena." Night Sorrow didn't want to talk anymore. There were too many despicable people. Black Demon King was despicable, and so was Shang Zhengxian. Night Sorrow was still watching the battles. He realized that there was only one person who had a high-level attribute. It was the rule of death, but he hadn't grasped the power of will. This made Night Sorrow realize that high-level attributes were indeed rare. The Peak Saint King with the death attribute didn't enter the Half-Step King because he couldn't grasp the will of death. The battles continued. In the middle of the night, Black Wind fought a battle and entered the top 30. Night Sorrow cupped his hands at Black Wind, congratulating him. It wasn't easy to win a battle. The battles continued. Then, Tiannan Dynasty's Yu Wenhan also advanced, but he was still outside the top 20. He only advanced 3 places. Next was Qian Ziwei, but she didn't succeed. Her opponent's attacks were very violent. It was the Half-Step King with the fire attribute. After her defeat, Qian Ziwei retained her original position. The other person Night Sorrow paid more attention to, Zhang Wushang, also won and entered the top 20. After 2 more battles, it was Chen Bai's turn. Chen Bai's opponent was the Half-Step King. He was very strong, and his will was also a mixed will. It was the will of wind and fire, and his speed was relatively fast. Chen Bai's will of earth thunder was both defensive and offensive. His opponent was fast, but he couldn't gain the upper hand. Night Sorrow knew that Chen Bai didn't really use his full strength. When Chen Bai fought with Qian Yu, Chen Bai used the will of earth to support the gravity suppression. Gravity suppression was an ultimate move that countered speed. His speed would be greatly reduced. Night Sorrow also knew that Chen Bai wanted to preserve his trump card. After all, it was only the first round. He couldn't kill his opponent with brute force, so he had to preserve his trump card and win. When Night Sorrow was predicting when Chen Bai would use the gravity suppression, Chen Bai used another ultimate move. It was a lightning sword technique. It was a set of sword techniques that directly blocked the opponent's path of movement. Then, he started to attack. Chen Bai's 2-sword chi pierced through the man's body. Just as he was about to kill him, his opponent surrendered. Chen Bai reached the 12th place. He was already close to the top 10. Night Sorrow stretched his neck. He knew that after entering the top 10, someone would challenge him. The challenges continued. In the blink of an eye, it was the 10th place. The 10th place didn't bite off more than he could chew. He only challenged the 8th place, but he also failed. After all, the 8th place in the 9 Heavens Tower was very strong. The 9th place directly surrendered and gave up the challenge. Actually, this was a wise choice. He would stay still and watch others fight. That way, he would have a higher chance of winning. The 8th place also gave up the challenge. Then, it was Shang Jingxuan's turn. Shang Jingxian walked onto the stage and pointed his long sword at Night Sorrow. It's finally my turn. Night Sorrow, come out and die. Chapter 1022. C_T, Genius 1 second remember love/go/little. Show on Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. My heartwarming. Com has almost all the books you want to read. It is much more stable than other websites and updates faster. It is all text and has no advertisements. Go to hell. Shang Jingxian waved his long sword and slashed towards Night Sorrow. Shang Jingxian comprehended the mystic fire intent. At this moment, his long sword was filled with fire attribute energy that was supported by the mystic fire intent. Night Sorrow swung his reincarnation spear and pierced it towards Shang Jingxuan's longsword. %LC Original 4 Chapter FW on DY. Although he wanted to kill Shang Jingxian, Night Sorrow still had to hold back. After all, he still had to continue to face challenges. He had to kill his opponents and make them unable to see through his strength. Only then could he intimidate them. Ding! With a crisp sound, Night Sorrow was forced back 2 steps. Shang Jingxuan's longsword was shaken and his body was also forced back. After forcing Shang Jingxian back, Night Sorrow's feet shook and he charged forward. He brandished his reincarnation spear and slashed violently. Shang Jingxuan's expression changed. He knew that Night Sorrow was very strong, but he didn't expect Night Sorrow to be this strong. Read the full text. After taking a step back, Shang Jingxuan's body surged with energy. He faced Night Sorrow's long spear and slashed violently again. This time, he attacked with all his strength. It was a fire attribute attack that was supported by the mystic fire intent. He wanted to force Night Sorrow back so that it would be easier for him to fight. There was another explosion, and the two of them separated. However, Shang Jingxian was the one who retreated the most. Night Sorrow's body was at the peak of the Saint King realm, and this kind of strength supported by his illusory true chi was astonishing. With a swing of his long spear, Night Sorrow attacked again. This time, it was supported by the void true chi. Seeing that Night Sorrow was still attacking head-on, Shang Jingxian roared and slashed with his sword again. This time, the result was different from the previous 2 head-on collisions. A portion of Shang Jingxuan's long sword's energy was directly melted before it collided with Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear. With 30% of his energy depleted, how could Shang Jingxian fight Night Sorrow head-on? He was sent flying by Night Sorrow's spear. What's the situation? He didn't even use his willpower, but he's already so fierce? Yuanling Realm Lord's eyes were filled with surprise. That's a real tough guy. His body has already reached a certain level. The contestant from Demon Moon Field didn't manage to break his body even though he didn't use a protective chi shield. That shows how strong his body is, said No Beginning King. After repelling Shang Jingxian with a single spear strike, Night Sorrow's feet shook as his body soared into the air, once again lashing out at Shang Jingxian. When Shang Jingxian retreated, he once again used his sword to block. Following a buzzing explosion, Shang Jingxuan's long sword was bent by Night Sorrow's spear. Shang Jingxian was also sent flying. Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear was repelled back. After his body rotated, he continued to attack Shang Jingxian. This time, Night Sorrow used the ultimate Spear of Desolation. He didn't intend to give Shang Jingxian a chance to defend himself. Shang Jingxian, who was sent flying, saw Night Sorrow charging towards him again. He immediately let out a long howl as his hair stood on end. He had activated his berserk bloodline. When Shang Jingxian used his sword to block Knight Soro's reincarnation spear, the energy law on Knight Soro's reincarnation spear trembled. He had used the desolation law and power of desolation with the technique of vibration energy. Shang Jingxuan's long sword was repelled. At the same time, Knight Soro's reincarnation spear suddenly accelerated. It penetrated Shang Jingxuan's defense and pierced towards Shang Jingxuan's body. Ah! Die! At this time, a golden armor appeared on Shang Jingxuan's body. At the same time, his long sword slashed towards Knight Soro's head. A Saint King-grade defensive treasure. Qian Zhenyu said in surprise. At this time, Knight Soro didn't dodge. He held the reincarnation spear in his right hand and stabbed Shang Jingxuan's soft armor. At the same time, his left hand punched towards Shang Jingxuan's head. Reckless. Yunyu stood up. She was worried about Knight Soro's safety because this was a lose-lose battle. Even if he won, if he was injured, the following battle would be difficult to continue. But in fact, the result was different from what Yunyu had expected. Knight Soro's violent spear strike shattered Shang Jingxuan's golden soft armor. At the same time, his left fist punched Shang Jingxuan's long sword, repelling it and pushing Shang Jingxian back. Knight Soro's protective chi shield slashed and caught up with Shang Jingxian, whose soft armor was shattered and his internal organs were shaken. Knight Soro thrust his reincarnation spear forward again. This time, Knight Soro used Nihility Extreme Strike. Shang Jingxian held his sword with both hands and slashed at Knight Soro again. He couldn't retreat anymore because he had reached the edge of the ring. As the two weapons collided, a purple halo burst out from the tip of Knight Soro's reincarnation spear. As the halo burst out, the long sword in Shang Jingxuan's hand was broken. After breaking Shang Jingxuan's long sword, Knight Soro's body soared into the air. Using his left foot as the foundation, he kicked Shang Jingxuan's chest with his right foot with violent energy. Shang Jingxian, whose long sword was broken, turned his right hand and stuck the long sword to his right arm. He crossed his arms to block Knight Soro's kick. Pung! With a muffled sound, Shang Jingxian was kicked away by Knight Soro like a sandbag. The broken sword stuck to his arm was broken again. Shang Jingxian, who was kicked away, spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Knight Soro directly used Space Rend. A black Space Rend slashed towards Shang Jingxuan's body. I admit defeat. Shang Jingxian, whose eyes were filled with fear, shouted. Freeze! Sovereign Zi Shao stood up and extended his right hand towards the ring. He smoothed out the Space Rend created by Knight Soro. Didn't you want to kill me? Kill me with your mouth? Speak with your strength in the future, you dog. Knight Soro scolded and cupped his hands towards the sovereign in front of the ring. Zi Shao also nodded towards Knight Soro. He liked Knight Soro's character. He was usually quiet, but when a gentleman was angry, he was like a tyrant. King Yuqiong then announced Knight Soro's victory. Knight Soro cupped his hands towards King Yuqiong and nodded towards King Yuqiong. Then, he walked towards his seat. Qing Yin stood up and cupped her hands towards Knight Soro. Knight Soro's victory was not difficult at all. From the beginning of the battle, he had suppressed Shang Jingxuan's attacks. It could be said that it was a one-sided battle. Then, the sixth person stood up. I, Long Jin, originally wanted to challenge you, Knight Soro. But since you have already fought, then forget about it. Of course, I might not be your opponent. This man, who was wearing a golden robe and had a pair of smiling eyes, looked at Knight Soro and said. A man cannot be afraid. If this round is not enough, then let's try again in the next round. Knight Soro cupped his hands towards Long Jin. He admired Long Jin's magnanimity. What a man. If he wanted to fight, he would say it out loud. At this moment, Long Jin looked at Qing Yin. Long Jin was the sixth person. The person in front of him was Qing Yin. Qing Yin held on to the armrest of her seat and stood up. No. I, Long Jean, do not steal from women. Even if I did, it would be embarrassing. The one in front of the woman, stand up. Long Jean waved his hand towards Qing Yin. Then, he looked towards the front. Chapter 1023. C_T, Genius 1 second remember love/go/little? We provide you with interesting novels to read. Read the full article. Do you want to die? The Black Demon Sage King stood up after Long Jean passed the 4th place. I want to die, I want you to die. UF*Ker, I won't say anything about you being useless after living for so long. I can understand that you want to snatch the opportunity. But what are you pretending for? You killed my people during the selections. Today, I will destroy you. A battle saber appeared in Long Jin's hand. Seeing the battle saber in Long Jin's hand, Knight Sorrow's eyes lit up. The battle saber was too unique and too cool. The handle was 1.5 feet long and the body of the saber was 1.5 feet long. The body of the saber was rippling with light. Knight Sorrow knew that this was a real killing weapon. The endless sky blade of 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 the endless sky realm. Saint King Slaughter said softly. At the same time, he looked at the main seat. The sovereign of the endless sky realm was sitting there. You know quite a lot. A lady on the main seat opened her eyes. This lady had sky blue hair. Her face was like a full moon. Her almond-shaped eyes were cold and arrogant. Saint King Slaughter stood up and bowed to this lady with sky blue hair. Hee. This is the reputation of the endless sky realm. Sovereign Xian Tian laughed. That's right. Why are you all looking at me? I just said that he knows quite a lot. After glancing at Sovereign Purple Firmament and No Beginning Sovereign, this lady, who was Sovereign Hai Lan, closed her eyes again. Very fierce. Knight Sorrow realized that this lady was very fierce. Although she had covered it up with a single sentence, when she spoke, her eyes were filled with killing intent. Saint King Slaughter sat down. However, he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He couldn't bear the killing intent that Sovereign Hai Lan had directed at him just now. At this moment, the battle on the stage had already started. Knight Sorrow knew that Black Demon Sage King was going to be in trouble. Long Jean was too strong. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation J. Long Jean had the will of extreme water and was also of the water attribute. The true intent of extreme water was augmented by the water attribute laws and water attribute energy, greatly increasing its power. Knight Sorrow squinted his eyes as he looked at it. This was because there was something familiar in the water attribute of the dragon gold. Long Jean brandished his endless sky saber and slashed continuously. His saber aura had already taken shape and was suppressing the black malevolent Sage King. It's not your fault that you're old, and it's also not your fault that your aptitude isn't good enough. I can tolerate your shamelessness, but if you dare to provoke my Hai Lan realm, I'll kill you. Long Jean kept slashing with his blade as he cursed. Trying to act all high and mighty in front of us? You're courting death. Monarch Hai Lan opened his eyes again and stared at the stage. The Black Demon Sage King was feeling aggrieved. He could not unleash his attacks and was completely suppressed by Long Jean. Long Jin's saber aura and saber skills were domineering, but he was even more domineering. Seeing that there was no chance of victory for him, the Black Malevolent Sage King knew that he would be severely injured or killed if he were to persist any longer. Thus, he decided to surrender. Grandson, aren't you awesome? Let me tell you now. You're just a bastard. Long Jean scolded the Black Malevolent Sage King. The Black Malevolent Sage King's face turned pale. Long Jean had slapped him hard in the face. It was not only in terms of words, but also in terms of strength. Long Jean went to the third seat and took out a silk handkerchief. After wiping his face, he threw the handkerchief aside and sat down. The black malevolent Sage King could only slink to the sixth seat. The third seat was taken by Long Jean. After Long Jin's challenge, it was the fifth place, Qing Yin's turn. I give up this round. Qing Yin stood up and said. King Yu Qiong nodded at Qing Yin. Giving up now was actually a strategic move. It could also be considered as concealing one's strength. At this moment, the fourth person stood up. Sir, I give up for now too. Those who chose to endure now were all smart people. It was the same in the final stage. At that time, they would be able to see the strength of their opponents. They would be able to see who they could challenge and who they could not. Long Jean, who had just reached the third place, gave up too. King Yu Qiong then looked at the second place, Saint King Slaughter. It's not wise to fight now. However, I can't control my temper. Night Sorrow, we will fight sooner or later. Let's start now. Saint King Slaughter stood up and said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow also stood up. He knew that this battle was unavoidable. It might also be the most difficult battle because Saint King Slaughter might be the strongest in this batch. Then, the two of them walked onto the arena. I, Saint King Slaughter, only fight to kill. If you die, then it's your bad luck. Saint King Slaughter stood on the arena. All right. Victory and defeat are also determined by life and death. Life and death are up to fate. Night Sorrow waved his reincarnation spear and was ready for battle. With a low roar, Saint King Slaughter waved his battle blade and charged towards Night Sorrow. Massacre intent, fire intent. Saint King Slaughter used the fire intent to support the massacre intent in battle. The smell of blood assaulted Yi Shiwen's face. Night Sorrow's innate bloodline protection shield was propped up. The space intent was also unleashed. With a diagonal slash, his body drew an arc and dodged Saint King Slaughter's first slash. After dodging this slash, Night Sorrow rushed forward. The space intent directly cut open the large area of fire energy that Saint King Slaughter used. Then, he stabbed his spear towards Saint King Slaughter. Kill! Saint King Slaughter roared. His blade slashed towards Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's right arm shook. The space intent supported the space intent and shot out a spear attack. Bang! With a muffled sound, Saint King Slaughter was sent flying by Night Sorrow's spear attack. The space intent had an absolute suppression on ordinary intents. In addition to Night Sorrow's tyrannical body, Saint King Slaughter was naturally at a disadvantage. After sending Saint King Slaughter flying, Night Sorrow's protection shield slashed and chased up to Saint King Slaughter. Then, he unleashed another fierce spear attack. With a furious roar, Saint King Slaughter combined his arms and slashed out again. At the same time, he borrowed the recoil force of the blade light to speed up his retreat. Then, he continued to attack. However, Night Sorrow's speed was too fast. The Space Intense energy shield slashed at the Space Intent, which greatly aided his speed. After dodging Saint King Slaughter's blade light, the reincarnation spear attacked Saint King Slaughter with streaks of spear light. Saint King Slaughter relied on the mystic flame intent to increase his speed. He dodged Night Sorrow's attacks. Although he was in a sorry state, he could still resist. Since his attacks couldn't land, he couldn't defeat Saint King Slaughter in a short period of time. Night Sorrow directly used the space blade. At the back of Night Sorrow's neck, streaks of space blade flew towards Saint King Slaughter. When Saint King Slaughter hurriedly dodged, Night Sorrow used his trump card, Soul Extinguishing Slash. The crescent slash with a purple halo, under the support of Night Sorrow's space intent, instantly streaked across the space and slashed towards Saint King Slaughter's head. Chapter 1024. C_T, Genius 1 second Remember Love/Go/Little? We provide you with interesting novels to read. Being attacked by Night Sorrow's soul annihilation / Slaughter's face turned ferocious. He tried his best to use his soul power to wrap around Night Sorrow's soul annihilation / to prevent the God Pearl from shattering. The soul annihilation / worked. Night Sorrow's body slashed in a straight line and arrived in front of Saint King Slaughter. The reincarnation spear was pressed against Saint King Slaughter's forehead. At this moment, Saint King Slaughter, who felt death approaching, gave up resisting. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow withdrew the soul annihilation / crescent moon blade from Saint King Slaughter's spirit sea. Why didn't you kill me? Saint King Slaughter opened his eyes. I need a reason to kill. Currently, I can't find a suitable reason to kill you. Don't make me annoy you. Don't make me dislike you. Night Sorrow withdrew the reincarnation spear and took a few steps back. Okay. I owe you my life. Saint King Slaughter cupped his fists at Night Sorrow. At this moment, King Yuqiong announced the result of the battle. The two of them sat on their respective seats. Powerful. Realm Lord Yuan Ling stroked his beard and said. Indeed. This guy's killer moves come one after another. He can even reach the entry level of a high level will like the spatial will. There's no precedent for this, right? The Seven Rain Monarch's eyes were still on Night Sorrow. Yes, there is in the Xianhuang Great World. I haven't heard of other worlds. Powerful. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's continue reading. Purple Cloud Monarch shook his head and said. This was his inner regret. Even though he had become a monarch, there were some things he couldn't do. High-level attributes were not fated with him. Super many good novels. Purple Cloud Monarch had once insisted on entering the Saint Realm with high-level attributes. However, he couldn't hold on for a long time, so he could only give up. Although his mixed attributes were very powerful, he still felt regret. Black Sky, tell me. What price do you want to let him go? I want him, said the Seven Rain Monarch. Seven Rain Monarch, you think too much? That's impossible. Black Sky Monarch said decisively. Impossible? It's not up to you to decide. He's from the Tianding Gate. He has nothing to do with your Shantian dynasty. I'll think of another way, said the Seven Rains Sovereign. Chiyu, do you want to fight? Lord Xian Tian asked. All right, that's enough. Xian Tian, don't stop him. Chiyu, don't be stubborn. I have my own thoughts too. No Beginning Sovereign smiled. Don't make a fuss. He's still young. He has a long way to go. Don't disturb him too much, Sovereign Zishao said. Lord Xian Tian nodded. He knew that Lord Zishao was right. This guy is really troublesome. He has already offended King. Things are getting worse. Then, Lord Xian Tian talked about some of the grudges between Night Sorrow and Tiannan dynasty. The Sage King dared to challenge the king's forces, this character. I like it. Chiyu slapped the table and said. You have to be able to grow. It doesn't matter how well you speak, the Tsangyin Sovereign said. Why are your words so harsh? The Seven Rain Sovereign frowned as he looked at the Tsangyin Sovereign. Why are you so talkative? Who are you talking to? The Tsangyin Sovereign growled. So what? Do you want to fight? The Seven Rain Sovereign's hair danced in the wind, and mist appeared above it. What are you two doing? If you want to fight, wait until after the first Sage Assembly of the 100 Realms. Don't hit my face now. Don't be undisciplined, Lord Zishao said. The Tsangyin Sovereign and the Seven Rain Sovereign didn't say anything. They could fight, but they couldn't be undisciplined. In the Nine Heavens realm, being undisciplined was a serious problem. Everything calmed down. Fortunately, the area where the sovereigns were was shrouded in energy. The participants and spectators couldn't hear them. Otherwise, there would be a huge commotion. Then, the challenges started from the 100th place. One by one, they advanced. I owe you my life, King the Slaughter turned to look at Night Sorrow and said, "That's not necessary. For the next challenge, I'll treat it as if you're dead." "Don't bother me," Night Sorrow said. "What do you mean by treat it as if I'm dead? I don't like to hear that. I'm old, but I'm not shameless. If I don't fight with you, I have to keep my seat," King the Slaughter said unhappily. Hearing King of the Slaughter's words, the Black Demon Sage King's face turned green. He slammed the armrest of his seat. King of the Slaughter's words were equivalent to slapping his face. It was the same as saying that he was shameless. "Shoo. Hey. If no one challenges you, I'll do it. I think your seat is better." Long Jean whispered to Night Sorrow. "Anytime. I think it's better too," Night Sorrow said. "Indeed. I like it too," the girl in fourth place said. Then one by one. "I was planning to kill a few so that no one would bother me. Seems like there's no need for that. Let's fight. I'll play with you for a few rounds. But remember, don't do anything that disgusts me. I'll kill whoever disgusts me," Night Sorrow said to the row of people at the side. His words were meant for everyone to hear. Night Sorrow's words were heard by everyone, including Shang Jingxian. Those who heard Night Sorrow's words knew that he was serious. Of the two people who fought with Night Sorrow, King of the Slaughter did not say anything disgusting. Hence, Night Sorrow held back. However, Shang Jingxian did not. Night Sorrow really wanted to kill him. If he did not admit defeat quickly, he would be a corpse now. "Actually, you don't have to focus on that place. This place is not bad. My place is also a test. You can all try," King of the Slaughter said. "If you want to sit, then sit on the best seat. Of course, you can't sit on it. Besides, if you can't sit on it," Long Jean said, "you're a good for nothing. Remember, if you want to fight, you must have the confidence to win. If you don't do anything, then you're not confident. Are you still a member of the Heilong dynasty?" Monarch Heilong slammed the table in front of her and shouted at Long Jean. Long Jean knows his mistake. Long Jean stood up and bowed. "Okay, it's good that you know your mistake. Of course, you may not be able to sit on it." Monarch Heilong finished shouting and pressed her hand down to let Long Jean sit down. Night Sorrow closed his eyes and rested. Although the battle was intense, it was very short and did not consume much energy. As for the next battle, Night Sorrow felt that there were a few people who could challenge him. However, the biggest threat was the fourth woman. Night Sorrow felt a dangerous aura. Although he did not see the woman fight, he could feel it instinctively. "She's so beautiful." Even the second place was defeated. "It's impossible for the others to defeat the 13th place, Yang Lei said excitedly. "The third and fourth place are very strong, especially the fourth place." "That woman is not simple," Qian Jinyu said. "Jinyu, what did you say?" Yunyu asked. "She's from the Phantom race. You know what the Phantom race is like." Qian Jinyu's words shocked Yunyu. Chapter 1025. C_T, Genius 1 second Remember Love/Go/Little? I'll provide you with interesting novels to read. $a cotton, flower candy little say, up to 5 new chapters and our #/Phantom Doppelganger and Soul Doppelganger were two completely different concepts. Phantom Doppelganger was a talent and a combat skill that could be used in battle. The Phantom race's Phantom Doppelganger had 50% of the original body's combat power. The most terrifying thing was that the original body and the doppelganger could be switched. In other words, when the original body was in danger, the original body and the doppelganger could be switched, and the one being attacked would be the Phantom Doppelganger. Qian Xiangwei explained the power of the Phantom race to Wu Lingfei and the others. "Then it's impossible to defeat them, let alone kill them," Wu Lingfei said worriedly. Wu Lingfei said worriedly. She was very worried about Yishan. According to Rosebud Qian's explanation, the Phantom clan was unbreakable and had no weaknesses. Not exactly. They still have a weakness, which is violent attacks that can quickly destroy their Phantom doppelganger. This way, their original body will consume a lot of energy, and they won't be able to quickly create another doppelganger, Qian Jinyu said. This is a way to defeat them, but it's very difficult. They are also good at speed. Normally, they can easily crush cultivators of the same level, Yunyu said, shaking her head. I believe in Night Sorrow. When I met him, he had just stepped on the path of cultivation. He has experienced countless battles and has never lost. He won't lose this time either. What's wrong with the Phantom race? Sikong Chuyu said. Yes, I believe in 13 too. Yang Lei said. The battle continued. There were losers and dead. The battle was cruel. This was the price to pay for fighting for opportunities. Hei Feng and Chen Bai's rankings improved. Qian Ziwei gave up this round. She didn't want to fight now. Every time she used the dark intent, it would cause some damage to her body. The main reason was that she had comprehended the dark intent's destruction intent. This intent was too overbearing, and her body couldn't withstand it. Qian Ziwei originally didn't think there was much hope. However, Night Sorrow gave her a few drops of life spirit fluid. She could fight a few rounds with all her strength. Therefore, she still had to endure in the early stages. Zhang Wuyue's ranking was still relatively low, at 40th place. However, his elder brother, Zhang Wushang, had once again surpassed him by a few places. Zhang Wushang's battle prowess was indeed formidable. After reaching the top 10, the situation was relatively stable. No one dared to act rashly. They all wanted to see the strength of others. As for those who had fought before, they had already shown their strength. It would be unwise to fight without confidence. Therefore, no one wanted to make the first move. One by one, they gave up on this round of reading. When it came to the fourth person, the purple-haired woman thought for a moment and decided to forfeit. Night Sorrow, I'll let you rest for a while. Come, let's play with Saint King's Slaughter. We can sit on your side first. Long Jean stood up and said. That's fine too. Even if I can't get first place in the first Saint of 100 Realms, the other spots are up for grabs. Whoever has the ability can take my spot. Saint King Slaughter's mentality had changed a little after losing to Night Sorrow. The battle between the two was very intense. The Sky Billow sword technique that Long Jean used to defeat Black Fiend was not as powerful as the previous time. It was mainly because Saint King Slaughter's saber technique will rule that could block Long Jin's sword aura. Although Saint King Slaughter was having a hard time defending, it was not easy for Long Jean to attack. After an hour, Yu Qiong knocked on the gong. The battle is over. If there is no winner after an hour, it will be a draw. Lord Yu Qiong, after a draw, how will the seats be arranged? Long Jean asked after putting away his Sky Billow sword. This seat will not be changed because if you don't attack the opponent, you can't occupy the opponent's seat. Yu Qiong King said. What's this? Give me some more time. I can definitely win. Long Jean said gloomily. Actually, you have the upper hand now, but it's a fact that you can't attack. Besides, Saint King Slaughter doesn't want to kill you. If it's a life and death battle, you have the advantage, but it will be difficult to kill the opponent. Yu Qiong King explained the key points. It was mainly for everyone to hear that the competition was absolutely fair. That seems to be the case. Then you can sit first. Long Jean thought for a moment. After understanding the logic, he calmly accepted the result. I'm sorry. Each battle lasts at most an hour. You can't attack in an hour, so you can't take this seat. Saint King Slaughter said after returning to his seat. Then you can sit. If others attack, I will attack. Long Jean rubbed his nose and said. Can others do it? Saint King Slaughter said with a smile. Hearing Saint King Slaughter's words, Long Jean was stunned. It was the truth. It was very difficult for the people behind to defeat Saint King Slaughter. The possibility was very low. That won't work. According to this rule, Night Sorrow has the will of space and the space attribute. If he runs around, who can defeat him? After thinking about it, Long Jean slapped his forehead. I'm not as dirty as you. How can you think of this idea? Night Sorrow looked at Long Jean with disdain. Yes, you're really dirty. If you can't sit properly, it's useless no matter what you think of. The purple-haired woman sitting on the fourth seat said. The purple-haired woman was wearing a veil, so no one knew what she looked like. Night Sorrow closed his eyes because he knew his feeling was not wrong. That woman was definitely a dangerous opponent. The artistic conception in her words revealed her sharpness. The third round of challenges began. The battles continued from the 100th position. In fact, it had already started from the 90th position. Someone had already died in battle, and the seat was empty. The people behind could naturally advance. Everyone wanted a chance to be in the top 10, but the hope was not high. Everyone had seen the battles in the top 10. The level of battle was not something the people behind could compare to. There was a huge gap between people of the same cultivation level, not to mention the gap between a peak Saint King and a half-step king. Some people who were not confident chose to endure and planned to show their strength later. Zhang Weiyue lost. He was defeated by someone who used the same spear as Night Sorrow. Chen Bai and Song Wushang fought their way into the top 10. Chen Bai struggled in the beginning, but after using the earth attribute to attack with gravity, it was easier for him to win. It was the same for Song Wushang. He was not good at climbing the 9-cloud sky stairs in the 9-cloud tower. He was good at fighting. Originally, no one in the top 10 challenged. There were no weaklings here. It was not wise to act rashly unless one was confident. With no one challenging, Night Sorrow sat firmly in the first place. However, he knew that there would be tough battles to come. The woman sitting on the fourth seat would definitely move. No matter how busy I am, I will always keep the book updated at 4:00 so that everyone will have books to read during the Spring Festival. I hope you can put yourself in my shoes and stop urging me to update. I believe that people who read books have the qualities. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.